Yo,
What up?
what's good? Is my mic okay?
Yeah, that's pretty good, dude. Is this a Cheeto?
No.
Oh shit. Okay. You sound a little different. You don't sound like you have the
I
YouTuber
just
voice
woke
on.
up, so I'm a little tired.
Okay. So what's up?
But if you like want to cover the Steven Crowder thing, like I don't want to bother right now.
No, it's fine. I don't really care. What's up?
Bro, so I watched back at every like like once a month I like just like look up my name and stuff on YouTube just to see if like people are making videos about me because like sometimes just responding is like good content, right?
Sure.
And I saw that you made a video reacting to sorry, is my keyboard really loud?
I guess a little bit, but you're fine.
Yeah, I knew it, bro. This is like I got this from China a few days ago and it's so fucking loud. Sorry, but
Mhm.
not much I can do about it.
No
But
worries. No worries.
you did a video reacting to my video on the fuzzball whatever, the loud
Fuzzball. Oh,
loud like
Fuzz 999 or whatever. The
yeah.
interesting like trans TikTok person.
Yeah.
Um
And I didn't really like you know, it sort of. I mean, I was just making the video to make it. To be honest, it was like I called it like like the darkest secret. Or I mean, I was obviously like I pulled that out my ass, right? But
yeah.
you know, at the very end of it, you said if you actually need content, there's some things that you can make a video on, and then you put like a couple things.
Oh yeah, I put like 5 things in there. Yeah.
You put the cop that was for the streets in there, and I actually
Cop
made a
for the
video on that
streets.
because like you or the Megan Hall, whatever her name is.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah.
I actually looked into it. And I was like, or actually, I think you were part of it, and I also think my friend Optimus made a video on that too. Um, but it was actually super helpful, and I thought like, I feel like it's right now because I only cover not only, but I do a lot of drama stuff, and I kind of want to take a
Sure,
break
yeah.
from that and just react to just bullshit TikToks, kind of how I was doing last year.
Mhm.
It's like it's I don't know if you're familiar with like YouTube like terminology much or like if you stream, but there's this concept of two different types of videos that perform well on YouTube.
Mhm.
There's definitely more, but they're known as timed
EDP.
views, or there's like another word for it, I forget what it is. And then there's slow cooker and evergreen videos.
What
So
was the
like
what was the first one?
timed, or I don't know, there's a word for it, but it's videos that basically have like a short lifespan. Like they're gonna get all their views in the first
Oh,
24
okay.
hours and that's it.
Yeah. And then there's ones that have like longevity. Sure.
Yeah, exactly. So if you like, if like Aiden Ross like gets circumcised on stream, that's only gonna get views for the first 24 hours. Because like Aiden Ross did what? He did what? And then that's gonna get all the views. But then if you make a like documentary about like the rise and fall of Aiden Ross, that's gonna probably do well for
Yeah,
like
in
a
a
month or
long-term
something.
capacity, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So what I'm kind of doing right now is mostly that sort of like hot and fresh sort of
Yeah, like
first
breaking
24
news kind of
hours.
thing, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't mind doing it at all. I like it. I mean, I
Yeah.
just like making videos. But the problem with that, and this is like this is a genuinely big problem, is I really can't batch record. And what I want to do is like kind of sit down for like what 3 hours, 4 hours, and just cook like videos. And you just can't,
Okay.
you just really can't do that when it's drama stuff because you just gotta like go on Twitter and see, oh, like what's going on, and you're also like very limited. It's just you're only gonna get as much done as like you're allowed to get done based on what's actually happening, and
Mhm.
that bothers me, right? Because I don't want my creative freedom or like my ability to work hard to be reliant on whether or not people are like doing retarded shit. Or I don't know if I can say retarded.
Well, I'm
Really.
personally not a big fan of the word. So I'd
Okay,
prefer it if you didn't, but I understand what you're saying.
my fault. But like like I don't want it to be you get what I'm saying, right? It's like I don't want my ability to make or not make YouTube videos to be dependent on like what's happening, you know.
Yeah,
That's like
you want
why.
like longer form kind of content. Is that what you're saying? You want something that's a little more established and something that's less like breaking news type stuff?
Yeah, that's part of it. But but it's not really because I have a problem with it or I don't enjoy making it, but rather because it's like I can actually make like I can sit down for a few hours and just like be nonstop with content. Whereas like if you're doing drama stuff, you have to research it. You have to see like, oh, is this even popular anymore? It's just doing this stupid shit that I don't really like to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So how do you find videos? Like what do you do like when you're looking for content? Like I guess it is easier when you have a live stream chat because they're like, watch this, direct your eyes to this video, but I don't have that.
A lot of people send me stuff. Like they'll send me a bunch of shit that's going on. That's one way that I get it. Another way, well, I have a Discord. Sometimes I'll look through like TikTok or something, and like maybe I'll find something that's interesting. Let's see. What do we got here? Let's see what we got here. Yeah, so I cover like bullshit breaking news stuff too. I'll talk about like a Jubilee video, or somebody will send me something. Nothing super crazy. What is it that you were looking to do? What is it that you're looking to do? Like, why are you asking me about like the way are you looking to like broaden your horizons on content, or?
I don't know if I'd put it that way, but actually, yeah, kind of. I would say, because I already do it a little bit, but it's like I see people sort of. I mean, I would say especially you, because you're like live, and then you have this just factory of videos that I'm like, oh wait, these are kind of good topics. These are interesting. I see all these things happening, and I don't like. I don't mean this in like a disparaging way, but or like to like slight you or anything. And I'm not even saying you're terminally online, but I really don't spend that much time on the internet. No, I'm serious.
No,
like,
I know what you mean. I know you're not trying to be insulting.
So it's like it's like when I see all these like wow, that looks interesting. It's like I never would have found that, right? That's sort of my point. And it's like when I have a channel my size. I mean, this is my job. Like, this is legit my job.
Sure, I get that.
And,
well, same here. This is my job too. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so it's sort of just like it's like showing up to class without a fucking pencil. You know what I mean? Like I need my resources. I need to know like what the fuck's good, and I just don't. And I feel like I'm in the dark, and it's such a weird feeling because it's like I don't know what the fuck I'm doing wrong. And I just saw you were live. I was like, yo, like I'll hop in this guy's chat because he knows what's good. So I don't know. Cool. It's weird.
So,
but that's why I asked if like you wanted to talk live because
it's fine.
It's kind of just like I don't want to make it about me because I know you're live. It's just, I don't want to just like ask for advice live if you're.
Oh no, if you asked for advice and I didn't have time for it, I would have just like been like, oh, I'll talk to you later. It's not that big of a deal.
Enough.
I'm not exactly jumping all over Steven Crowder. It's not my favorite topic, but I'm going to talk about it anyway.
That guy is pretty weird though.
Yeah, he's a bit weird. Yeah.
Out of all the right wingers on YouTube, he's like the worst. Like. He provides nothing. He's not smart.
No, a lot of people aren't really very smart, But he is probably one of the worst big. Like I at least can like respect Ben Shapiro. He's a smart guy, even though I
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get that.
Even if you disagree with Ben, which a lot of people do, and you can find like fallacious arguments. Steven Crowder is legitimately like, and the main thing that you can say is like, oh, if they're not smart, at least they're funny. Which there is actually a genuine. You can make that argument for some people that aren't very smart in terms of politics, but they are funny. But he isn't very funny at all. I mean, I don't find him funny whatsoever.
Yeah, I haven't seen like a funny anything from him in a long time. Like, or like somebody trying to pass it along as funny. Like, sometimes I'll see some like TikToks of like, funny moments or whatever of conservatives. Like every once in a while I get like a Nick Fuentes video in my thing saying something, but there doesn't seem to be any support for people of Crowder saying anything that they find to be funny or and intelligent, really. I don't really see him existing in general. He seems like he's kind of faded away.
I don't know what he believes. I have no idea what he even believes.
I think he's money. I don't know.
Right, obviously, like the dollar is at the very end of the fishing rod, and he just sort of he's the fish, right?
I think he's a conservative, and that he's gotten himself locked into like a media pipeline almost. And when you get and a content pipeline, and when you get to that point, you start sensationalizing a lot of stuff, like not even necessarily actively. You just start sensationalizing things, and you get crazier and crazier, and that leads him to do just silly things. Like I remember he like made fun of George Floyd's death by pretending to have somebody kneel on his back and dressing up in like racist costumes, and I like I like a little bit of racism sometimes. It can be funny, but like just it being racist doesn't make it funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Give me 30 seconds. 1 second. Sorry.
Yeah. You gonna try to do something racist? Is that what you're saying?
I'm doing racism?
No, I said, are you preparing to do like a funny racism? That's what I was asking.
Oh yeah. Yeah, my blackface makeup is right on my desk.
Beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
So to the core of your question, are you asking like how I'm able to come up with like so many topics that I have?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Do you have a Discord? Well, I know you
I
have a
do,
Discord, but do you have like a yeah?
but it's not really like
It's not popping.
I don't want to I don't want to like bash the people that watch my videos, but they don't really offer very good suggestions. Like they'll be it's like, it's like really stupid. Like they'll be like, make a rant on like the word sus. I'm like, are you guys real? Like,
They're very connected with you. It sounds like I get. I'm very lucky with a lot of
yeah,
people send me things that are pretty much up my alley. They'll send me on Instagram and stuff. They'll send it to me there. Again, like I scroll to TikTok. It's also you can just look at other people's channels and just see what they're talking about. Like there's nothing wrong with doing that. Seeing if there's like a
yeah,
particular topic and being like, oh, cover that topic. Like today, I had a video, something you might be interested in talking about. It's this black woman who goes to Target. I don't know if you've heard about this. I'll send you the TikTok. It's about this black woman that goes to Target and she basically gets $1,000 worth of stuff that she knows she can't pay for. At least that's what it seems like to me. And then she asks them to give her reparations. And when they won't talk to her, she ends up like following one of the people who worked there, the loss prevention manager, into his office as he tried to de-escalate, and she cornered him, so he punched him in the face. And then she said, "This is my Rosa Parks moment." Right. So I had planned to do that, and then I saw that Abin preached it today. I'm like, oh, I should definitely do this topic then. So there's nothing wrong with like looking at someone else and being like, oh, let's see what they got here. Oh, maybe I could take this topic, pick this topic. I don't have to do that as much because I get like a lot of people, but I will like message me in my Discord. But I do that every once in a while. Like fuck it, just scroll through, see what people are talking about. There's not that's probably a decent video topic, stuff like that. You could probably like there was this one girl, and I wish I could get it. I wish I could have it for you, but there was this one person. It's a trans person, which isn't really relevant, but they got sent home because they had body odor, and then this person was complaining about how they were oppressed, but basically,
I did see that. That is funny.
yeah, but they deleted it, so I can't even find it. But that's like the kind of stuff. I mean, I would imagine.
Twitter.
Oh, what do you have? Oh, you see it on Twitter?
Yeah, I have it. I
Okay.
saw it last night. I was thinking like I can make a video on that.
You probably could. Can you send it to me? Because I actually kind of want to take a look at it.
Yeah, sure. It is it is sort of I don't know the one sort of like the one TikTok thing that also is kind of hard because I have to do my I always do videos that are over 8 minutes just because
Yeah.
you know money, but it also in algorithmically the higher watch time you have, like the more likely your videos to get recommended,
Mhm.
and like can be explosive. So when it's like just one TikTok, sometimes it is kind of hard to just like ramble for 8 minutes about it.
Yeah,
But
that
I'm
makes
sure I
sense.
could find a way to do it. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I think the TikTok that I sent you, if you watch it, it's actually 2 TikToks, and it's like 15 minutes in total. So there's probably some good punchable, like some moments that you could talk about there.
Yeah, there is also like some of the stuff that I find interesting. I just like can't talk about.
Like
Like
what? Politics?
yeah, like the Tucker Carlson stuff. It's like because like you know, it's like you lose one half of like the entire country if you talk about politics. Really, I mean, you can talk about some stuff like
Yeah.
that's like not super. It's like has a political undertone, but it's not overtly like the reparations thing, for example. Like that is like a political thing,
Yeah.
but like I don't know. I don't really think a lot of people are on board with that. I don't think it's a very popular opinion. Like the same thing with it's like people who say like you can't be racist to white people. It's like that's a political statement,
Yeah.
but it's like it's sort of the social stuff's pretty easy to tackle because if you're not socially inept, you can kind of have a grounded take on it regardless of where you are in the political spectrum, I feel like.
Yeah, sure. Plus, your audience is like younger guys, and they probably, they
Yeah.
enjoy
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Obviously, it's silly. You obviously can be racist to white people, but that's that's not going to be very polarizing if you have like a little bit of
That's
edge to
yeah,
your
that's
audience,
yeah, that's exactly it. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and talk about like immigration because I don't really know anything about that, you know.
Yeah, true. Well, you could always make a second channel, and you could talk about immigration if you wanted to. That's something.
Yeah, for sure.
That's something you really were passionate about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested in politics. I just, you know, I don't know if I'm like, I'm sure you know Destiny. Like he can.
Yeah.
I think he's very smart. There's no way I could speak as coherently as he does for the length of time he does without you know, maybe coming across as hypocritical or uninformed or something, you know?
Yeah, well, it takes practice, you know. You have to, you got to do it for a while, then you make like a lot of mistakes, and then you
Yeah.
get
Well,
better
he
and
is
better
kind
at
of a loser, so I mean, let's just be real.
But he's a smart guy,
Yeah.
you know. I'll give him
Yeah,
that.
he's smart.
But yeah, he's a little
So,
bit of a
yeah.
nerd. You should go tell him that he's a nerd.
I DM'd him a few months ago when I had a video made on me by this other lefty named Noah Samson.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, hey, because he basically sat
I
on a
have
call
with-
with Sneeko and held his hand during a response video because Sneeko had the, ability to admit that he was stupid enough to not be able to respond to it like himself.
Sure, yeah.
So he had Destiny sort of like team up with him. And I thought because my friend, I don't know if you know him, his name's Kai Schwemmer, Kai Clips maybe. I don't know if you heard of him.
No, I don't
But-
think so.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was or is, well, he's not right now because he's in Argentina, but he was like one of Fuentes' like sort of, he was kind of in the movement.
Okay.
I don't know, a little bit out there, but he's definitely, he's like 19. He's definitely way more grounded. I think he sort of left AF or America First or whatever.
He's left or America First, or
No, he's like sort of like left that movement.
left
like
that movement. Oh, okay, yeah.
Or
gotcha.
not. I don't want to speak for him or anything, but
Yeah, the way he sounds like a young man, just
yeah.
exploring
Well,
ideas.
he's basically like he doesn't really have any. He's like 1,000 subscribers, right? And Destiny was streaming with him, so I'm
Okay.
thinking was like, oh, like there's no way, right? I'm gonna get ghosted, or he's gonna read his DM because he streams like 7 hours a day. Like he's gonna open the DM and see, oh, this dude is followed by this guy because he follows people that follow me.
Mhm.
But he just fucking didn't, and I was upset. So he's not gonna answer me. Maybe he will, but
Well, I think if you join Destiny's Discord, he has it. There's basically, I think that for creators, if you know their creators, or he knows that you're a creator, he will give you like perms to be able to jump into his channel whenever you want. You just gotta say, hey, I'm a creator. He will usually be somewhat open to like the collab stuff, I think. Just because he has like at least maybe that's like a newer thing. I think he does it to kind of expand his horizons. So
yeah, that may be true. Yeah, I don't know. I've also, I mean, as of recent, I've sort of stopped caring about like the, like the sort of streaming Destiny sort of stuff. I don't really watch him that much anymore.
Mhm.
If I ever watch him, it'll be like one of his debate VODs because I think that those are pretty interesting. But yeah, I don't know.
okay, what about you streaming? When's that coming?
I was streaming a fair amount like 2 weeks ago because I have a plushie that I'm trying to get funded.
Oh,
With these people called Makeship, and you have to get like 200 pre-orders to fund it.
Yeah, have Ethan Klein can fund them for you, and then he can
Right.
remove the funding. You know,
Yeah,
great guy.
yeah. But anyway, basically I was streaming because when you're live, people just buy them while you're live. It's just sort of how it works.
That makes sense. Yeah, we got to get your reaction channel up and running. You know,
Yeah, something like that. EDP4.
it's your best bet.
Yeah, but I don't know. Streaming is I'll probably do it when I face reveal. I mean, yeah.
Oh,
it's
is that-
a lot easier?
Is that coming soon? The face reveal?
Well, the original plan was to do it at 400,000 subscribers, but I really warmed up to the idea of doing it just before VidCon this year.
Okay. Well, you're
So
close to
maybe
that
in, like, a
400K.
month. Yeah, but realistically, it's not going to happen in a month, right? Just based on like how I'm growing, it's like 10,000 subs a month at like the high end,
That makes
like
sense.
6,000 low end. So it's just like it's all of May. So it's like if I hit 10,000 in May, it'll be like 48, almost 350, and that's just And plus, like there were people last year at VidCon that like I said I was there,
Mhm.
and like they took pictures with me, and because like they just found me and stuff.
How'd they know it was
And-
you? Were you wearing like an Acheeto shirt?
I was just with a bunch of people that were like somewhat noticeable, and then I just
Okay.
like I just said like I'm him. I just didn't really care. Like it's I don't know. I just sort of.
That makes sense. I'm surprised that they haven't leaked it yet. The
I mean, it was
Acheeto.
like three. It was like three people, and I just asked them not to, and they've been nice. So
okay. That makes sense. Yeah. Are you worried about Are you worried about people thinking that you're ugly and not wanting to watch your videos anymore?
No, not really.
You're gonna get dreamed out, you know?
Nah. I mean, Dream isn't. I mean, he's not that ugly.
No, he's not bad looking. I don't think his his career has anything to do with his face. I think that he just wanted to like reveal it so he could be a person. Like that's really all it was.
Yeah.
So it'd probably be fine. I don't think anything will actually happen. Just don't get.
It definitely is. It is interesting because it's like I wonder what the effect because it's like do people actually get upset like if you're ugly? Because I'm not even like ugly. Like I have I would say like if I had to be on one of those like here I'm in a game. These guys are talking so loud. What was I gonna say? Yeah, it's like I don't know. Like I don't want to be one of those girls on the whatever podcast who was like, "Oh, rate yourself." And like I'm a 10, but I think I'm good looking. So
that's good. You should have confidence. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, that just for you, it crosses that boundary where like you're no longer. I don't even know how to express it, but there's like some content creators, like almost Sunny V2s, that are like they're entities, but they're not really people. And then there's content creators like you mentioned Destiny, that's like a person instead of an entity because like they're more personal with their showing. But I don't think that it's going to cross like a massive boundary if you show your face. Are you going to put it up as your profile picture up over here?
On Discord?
No, right here on your YouTube. Make a big smiling face of Acheeto.
Yeah, maybe. I have a few pictures that I could use, but I think it'd be cool to recreate the art that someone drew for me for the picture. A little side profile. Like is 3/4.
Is this you being drawn by somebody? This profile picture?
Well, it's funny because yes, but it's not even of like it's not based on anything, but it does kind of look like me a little bit. Besides, I mean, the nose is a little wide.
It's like Tracer.
Yeah. So, funny story about my my character. So, look up Tracer Cute Spray. That was my first ever avatar for YouTube back when I was like 10.
Okay.
And after that, like I made my profile Darwin from the Amazing World of Gumball for
Tracer
a while.
was wait, 10 years ago? Was Overwatch out then?
No, when I was I said when I was like 10, but I was like 12.
Oh, okay. Wait, how old are you?
No, I was like 13. Well, because I'm 19 now.
Oh, that makes sense.
This was like 6 years ago, and this was like when Overwatch first came out.
Yeah, I lose track of time. I'm old, so
yeah,
I don't have a concept of time anymore. So that makes sense though.
Yeah, so so then it became Darwin from the Amazing World of Gumball, and they were both orange. So I was like, what if I just kind of combine the two and make it look like me? So we took like the Tracer mask or like whatever, and then I sort of stuck with that. It's like kind of but then it became from a mask to just like kind of glasses. And there's variations, but yeah.
Yeah, well, Darwin, I think people say that he's black. You should have made it a blackface PFP or something.
Yeah, I realized that he was black. It's pretty cool, you know.
It's like it's like you're living vicariously through him, you know.
He's literally me.
True. All right. Well, what else is going on? What else is happening in your world? You still beefing with Jaden?
Well, I had another video made on me, sort of. It was a reaction on. I made a video on Chris Tyson and how he bought artwork from
the inappropriate artwork. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I talked about that, and I also talked about putting his son in high heels. And I made a video on that just because like I know it was gonna get views, and I also do find the topic kind of interesting because it is sort of like people are gonna be like, oh, just support Chris, but I do think that there is actually you definitely can criticize him for some stuff. I mean, like he isn't on his best behavior. That's just a fact. If you look at how he's like responding to people and what he's posting, he's being incendiary on purpose. Like you don't put your son in high heels after getting a bunch of backlash. Just
was
that
the was that put up after the backlash? Was that a response?
Yeah, it was like a few days later. It wasn't a response, but it was like, you know, he's getting criticism for transitioning, or or people being transphobic, or whatever you want to call it, and you know, people are saying HRT, whatever. You know, you're making Mr. Beast feel weird in his video. Sunny V2 does his video. There's this drama going on, right?
Yeah, I've talked about it before. Yeah, I'm pretty in tune with the drama going on.
Yeah, so
I'm a drama channel, you know.
he's getting all this attention and this backlash and whatever. But then, just sort of out of the blue, he just decides to post a Snapchat putting his son in high heels, and it's like you don't do that not expecting. Like you know, I don't know. It just felt like
I
the
understand.
perfect
I
storm.
understand what you're saying. Is that obviously Chris seems to be goading a response from people who have been criticizing, well, them, him, whatever, for transitioning. Me
Yeah.
personally, I think. I mean, that's the first I'm hearing of the high heels thing in that capacity. I think it's kind of funny just to antagonize the people who are calling Chris out for being trans, because there is a lot of negative, I would call it transphobic attention. I don't know what side of the spectrum you lie on. It sounds like you might think it was bad that they transitioned. And it sounds like the video, I guess, what responded to you was
Well,
criticizing
my
you.
take
Is
on
that
it was basically because at the end of the day, there are people like that are just like mad and they can't really explain why.
Mhm.
But for me, it was just my argument basically because I made an original video on this when it first, the news dropped, and I basically said that I don't really care that he is taking this HRT thing in isolation because it's like whatever. Any like adults take crystal meth, like they
Well,
they take.
I would say it's a little different. The HRT is probably a little different from like an illicit drug. Um,
No. I'm saying the point is, it's like I don't care about all the millions of adults that are addicted to drugs, right? Let's say like
sure.
FaZe Rain, for example. He was on a huge coke binge for a while, and it's like, well, what am I gonna say? What I mean, it's just like I can't. It's like the substances that people put into their bodies when they're adults, even if they're good or bad. Which I don't know what HRT exactly how it works with your endocrine system and your hormones. I don't know how the science works,
Mhm.
but it is it's a substance you're putting in your body, and it's like I'm not gonna sit here and say he's a grown adult, right? It's like whatever he wants
Yeah,
to do. It's
I get what
like
you're saying.
he is autonomy, he can do that. So that was sort of my point, where it's like if I don't care if this dude, I wouldn't care if Chris from Mr. B started doing crystal meth. So it's like, why am I gonna care if he's taking HRT? Like, it would be just weird for me to get up and say, like, no. Like, so that was my point, right? It's like
Yeah,
the same thing. And so yeah, that was what I would say. I don't really care if he wants to whatever grow his hair out, do whatever. Um, he's just some random motherfucker at the end of the day, right?
sure. So what was that? What was you said you got like a video
Yeah,
criticizing
yeah,
you
so,
for that?
yeah. So because I did a second one that because that I just explained my first day because you asked like how I feel about it. That was just my
Yeah,
first day,
yeah.
and that's just how I feel about it. Um, but the second video was basically talking about the high heels thing and buying the artwork.
Mhm.
And I kind of just was like, dude, you're just weird. Because I really don't think that there was any reason he did it just then to piss people off and to get people like concerned about like his
Yeah,
son.
probably. Well, I don't know that Chris did it to get people to concerned about his son. I think he probably did it as like a fuck you to people that were going, because there have been a lot of crazy people going ballistic and a lot of transphobic conspiracy theories going on about how like a bunch of like how Chris is a bad parent now and all this other stuff. So I think it was more of a response to them. I personally wouldn't put it on Chris to act perfectly. First of all, the picture stuff. I know you're talking about like the shade base or shad base or whatever you say. That was inappropriate. I mean, I the benefit of the doubt to them. I chalk it up to being way too edgy, but still really concerning. But outside of that, the high heels thing, that just sounds like they're responding to people who are being transphobic by being like, "Oh, fuck you," and then put their kid in like high heels as like a joke to be like, "Yep, you're right. I'm basically grooming my kid to becoming trans," kind of a thing. I think
Yeah,
it's
but
funny. I put more
yeah.
responsibility on like the people more than the Chris in that instance.
Well, I think that's even worse because it's just like you have these people saying, "Oh, you're a bad parent," and he's like, "Well, yeah, I actually am everything you think I am." Like, it's like okay.
Do you think Chris is a bad parent?
Well, I don't think that he's a bad parent. I'm saying the people well, I have no idea how he is as a parent, right? But I'm saying for the people that may have thought that he is, like you said, grooming his kid or indoctrinating his son
Mm.
into behaving a certain way. He basically just said, "Yeah, I am doing that," because it's like, well, you think that I'm gonna like dress my kid up like a girl and make him sort of behave the way that I do? I was like, well, yeah, actually, I am. Like, put him in high heels, right?
Yeah, I don't think that that's them saying that they're actually doing some kind of grooming tactic. I think it's more of just like a just kind of like a fuck you to them. playing into the joke. It's like, oh, if you think I'm a monster, then I'll just like pretend to be. It's more of just kind of like a cheeky little edgy joke, more than anything else. I would be more concerned with the people promoting like the absurd conspiracy theories that Chris is going to be basically manipulating their son into becoming trans or whatever.
Yeah. Well, the point that I think is that you can make is that I don't know how he is as a parent, but I do believe in in parenting roles. Like I think that you can. This is another point that I made in my videos. I think that like father figures for young men and boys is like very important. Like you have to have or you don't have to, right? But I believe that it's very it's good and somewhat essential, ideally, to have like a father figure that you can sort of like model your life after or sort of learn from in your formative years. I know that I had my father, all of my friends, they had their fathers, unless they were divorced or something. But I think it's ideal, right? So it's like my point. I didn't say that he was a bad father because I mean he's really rich. So I think the
That's
economic
true.
thing is going to be like huge. Like he's going to have a lot of resources and stuff to raise the kid in a pretty good environment. But I don't know. I think gender roles are real, and I think that they sort of people say they're societally constructed. I think that's partially true. Like if you look at things like the color pink and the color blue, like that we did just kind of make that up. But I also
Yeah,
do
they say
believe that
that like
like
pink used to be or blue, excuse me, red used to be like a masculine color, and pink was for little boys. And
yeah,
like so,
yeah. So
there's
it's like I don't
level of socially constructed ideas there. Sure, yeah.
yeah. So I think that we did just kind of make that up. But I also do believe that some of it isn't socially constructed. Like I do believe that men are naturally leaders, and I think that like if you look at evolution and why that is, um, I don't I don't have the I don't study evolution or anything like that, but I do believe that there is sort of a there's like a cause for it. I don't think we just decided, oh, men are going to be leaders, and then we just are leaders. I think that there's like a reason as to like why I don't know. I think that it's not like it's not an abstraction. I think that there's like base behind it.
Yeah,
Like in nature, I think that men would assume the role of like hunting, gathering, and building and sort of shit, right?
yeah.
So
Oh, go ahead. I don't know if there's one more that you wanted to say.
yeah, well, just based on that, as I think that like fulfilling those roles and modeling those roles after like your the fruit of your loin, your kid is important. And that's all I said is that Chris, son, isn't gonna have that, and that's unfortunate. That's all I basically said. I don't know if that makes him a bad parent. I don't think it does, because I think there's a lot of things, especially modern. You have everything, technology and everything. But I think that it is disappointing.
All right. Well, there's a couple of things there. I think the first one is the father figure argument. I would say that do you think that you can get like a masculine or a father figure outside of like your actual father, like a coach or a scoutmaster or whatever else? Because I would say that they could probably still get a mask. Because I agree with you with like the masculine feminine figure thing. Like I think it's good for men and women to have both. I think that like good young, young boys usually generally could use some kind of a father figure to teach them how to be a man, but then a mother figure that can also teach them how they're supposed to be treated by a woman. And then on the flip
Yeah.
side for women too. But I also think that you can get that through like an uncle or a coach or a teacher, or there's a lot of different alternatives where you can get that type of attention, which I think is necessary. So I would say that that would be a decent subsidizing of I guess Chris's masculinity, like an uncle or something, or some kind of a person in their life.
Well, no one's gonna understand you the best in terms than like your own parents, and I think and when I say that I mean because you share half your genetics with them. I think that there is like a like they say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Like you adopt similar mannerisms as your father, or you just have them.
Hmm.
Similar diseases, similar just similar everything. There's so many there's like millions of things that you may not even realize you do the same as like your own dad or your own mom that you just do because you have the same genetics.
Sure.
So I think in that sense that there in order for someone to like you mentioned like a coach or somebody who's not the actual dad could be like a
Yeah.
role model. I agree with that 100%, right? But I think there's a difference between a masculine role model and a father figure or like an actual father. So I think when you
Sure.
watch movies and you see Captain America saving a bunch of people, that's a good role model. But at the end of the day, he's not going to be your father. He's not going to be able to teach you
Mhm.
and raise you a certain type of way.
Well,
And I think that like
so that's like a difference between a role model and like a or potential father figure. Is I Captain America, if they were real, even if they were real, they're probably not going to be very personal with you. So you might be like, oh, I look up to Captain America. But like a father figure, like an uncle could be a father figure for you if they're present and active in your life, and they do still fill like fill that genetic requirement that you mentioned.
yeah.
I think that because I come from a single mother, and like my uncle was a father figure for me. My Jaji was a father figure for me. I've had like a lot of robust, strong male figures in my life that like fortunately were able to subsidize like, oh, a shit father. But one of the things too is that Chris is still a parent, even if they may not be a very masculine parent. And I think it's good for everybody to have a nice mixture of masculine and femininity. They're still present, and I think that that's still a very positive thing.
Yeah.
Even if they're not the male role model. And a lot of people who don't have, because I talk a lot about like fatherless children. Like part of the equation is the lack of we'll say a masculine role model, but then part of the equation is that somebody let me be better about this. I talk about the fatherless children, and part of the issue with a fatherless child, even a motherless child, but we'll say fatherless in this instance, is part of it is like, yeah, you don't have a masculine role model or father figure, but then also part of it is that one of your parents fundamentally didn't want you, and I think that probably outweighs the equation in a way that's mentally distressing for the kid. So the kids, the Chris still wants to be the father, and I would say that Chris didn't choose to have gender dysphoria. I don't think anybody would choose to go through like hormones and any therapy and hormones, et cetera, if they didn't have to. I think most of us would rather be comfortable with the body we were born in and not have to take drugs in general. But unfortunately, not everybody wins the genetic
Do you think
lottery.
that's always true?
What do you like?
I'm not even talking about Chris anymore. But do you think that people who take like HRT or do hormones, like, do you think that they always want to do it?
What do you mean by always want to do it?
Well, because there's like people who detransition and stuff, and they were sort of like coerced into believing that they have like a certain disorder.
When it comes to detransition, was that they when they were young, they went to therapy and they thought that they had gender dysphoria, and their therapist was too affirming of that, which is definitely a problem, right? Like you shouldn't be overly affirming. Is it the job of a doctor or a therapist or whatever to make sure that they get at what's actually going on? I don't know if anybody's being like coercing people, but I think that generally speaking, people who detransition were misdiagnosed in some capacity, and they might have thought that would have been the right treatment method, and it wasn't, and they fall through the system. And it's unfortunate we don't talk about them more, but I don't think that they were necessarily coerced. They probably trusted a therapist, and the therapist unfortunately misguided them. There's a lot of comorbidities to being having gender dysphoria, like depression and anxiety and a lot of other things. And
yeah, well, that's interesting that you mentioned that, because I think that there is definitely a lot of coercion when it comes to antidepressants and stuff, because I basically know almost like 1 in every 3 kids that I talked to was misprescribed like an antidepressant or something, because they vaguely mentioned to some sort of psychiatrist that they were feeling glum at a certain point. And to me it seems very coercive, where it's like you can take a teenager who's going through the normal mood swings that you feel as a teenager and diagnose them with depression and stuff, and that happens so often. And it does feel coercive, because you have this person with their license to practice medicine, and they're basically abusing it to overprescribe antidepressants, because Jesus Christ, my throat, I'm dehydrated.
no worries, I have a similar thing. For some reason my throat's a little out.
Yeah, well, it's like because it's like either they don't actually want to deal with the problems that their patient is describing, or they would rather, or they genuinely think that like every kid is depressed, and that to me is like that's a big problem. It really is, because these kids become fucking brain dead after antidepressants. And when I say brain dead, I don't mean like they actually become.
No, but it changes you, especially going through your development. I understand what you're saying. I would say I wouldn't use the word coercion though. The coerce is like a threatening very active, very threatening, very like intense thing. I would say that.
Well, I don't think it's violent, right? Doesn't coercion, can't it just be like
Well, it doesn't have to be
and deceitful?
So the coercion is like persuading somebody by using force of threats. So
Is
threats,
that true?
yeah, threats don't always have to be violent, but it's always like a threat.
Okay, never mind. Yeah, I'm using the wrong word.
I think what you're trying to say is it's lazy in some capacity, and I think a part of it's lazy. I think that doctors might overprescribe medication out of laziness. I think out of a financial incentive, which I don't know if that's something that is necessarily a huge issue nowadays necessarily, because doctors don't get kickbacks anymore. I don't think that people should be going right to drugs. I think that giving kids drugs in general is like a little rough. I used to be on Ritalin, like I have ADHD.
Yeah, same. Exactly, literally same.
I wouldn't want my
heart
child
was
to do
beating
it.
out of my chest.
For me,
I took it at yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead. Finish. Sorry.
No, I mean I'm probably like cutting you off, but dude, like when I was 14, I took Ritalin, and I also took this monster. I don't know how this is okay by the FDA. It's called Concerta.
Mm-hmm.
The worst thing ever made. It literally, I took it at 9 a.m. By 10 a.m., I literally could not sit still. And it's like, because it's one of those things where it's like, I have, quote, ADHD, but in practice, it's like, I don't know if you have to put more, like, chemicals to make me behave differently. It's like, maybe I just have to learn to
manage your shit. Yeah. That's how I was.
You know?
It's such an interesting. It's like I said before. I don't really believe in giving kids medication, but then also at the same time, I'm not the parent, and I'm specifically not the parent, and I don't know what they're going through. I was a pretty behavioral child, and so I don't blame my mother at all for putting it on me. But I do remember being on it, and it would suppress me. It made me feel like I couldn't make any friends. I was very quiet into myself.
Yeah.
I performed really well in school. I was like an honor student, but then I came off of it because I hated the way I felt, and it was like a burst of energy I didn't know how to manage. I ended up dropping out of high school despite the fact that I was like an honor student in every one of my classes. It was like a very turbulent like years, a lot of problems, huge fucking thing. And I do think that some doctors might prescribe it out of laziness. Some parents might just not want to deal with it. They might have a kid that's having a problem. They're just like, give them something to get them to shut the fuck up. But then also, I think that the reason we're seeing so many people on drugs nowadays too is because we have a more depressed society, and I think part of that has to do with like social media. I think is a pretty big deal. People are constantly comparing themselves. Sure. I'd say that's a complicated issue when it comes to drugs. I'd say generally the way that you should interact with drugs, and I hope that
coercion's probably the wrong word.
Yeah, I would use I understand what you're saying. I think that drugs shouldn't be the first idea.
It's brainwashing. That's the right way to put it.
Well, I don't think it's anything active. I don't think that the therapist is like, oh, I'm going to brainwash this person. I think it's more like
No, it's not the therapist. I think it's like it's the culture. Our culture is basically saying like, oh, like it's common. Like 1 in 3 kids is depressed, and that's just not true. Like, even if they might be sad, it's like if you're like that's brainwashing because we just made that up and then it became true.
Well,
like, I don't think you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't know what statistic you're talking about.
I just pulled that out of my ass.
Okay,
know if it's 1 in 3.
Yeah, I would say that just because somebody might have. So first of all, I wouldn't doubt that there are kids that have like higher levels of depression and anxiety nowadays. And again, I think it's so tied into 1,000 other factors. I think that we underplay how terrified people are when they will watch the news or they'll go on social media and like everything is very in your face, very sensationalized. People sensationalize things constantly. Like what did we see during the 2020 election or 2016 election? It was like Donald Trump is literally working with the Russians, right? Sensationalized media. It's blasting into our face. On top of that, we have social media. We have phones that connect ourselves to every part around the world. You get to know the worst thing that happened in every single state, every single day. Everything feels like it's caving in on you. You have all these mounting social pressures. Already, high school was already like a fucking insane thing. Like for some reason, kids are just real pieces of shit in high school. They're really mean to each other. They bully the fuck out of each other. So I'm not surprised that you're seeing people have more depression because they're just seeing constant streams of information that they're addicted to, and you can't put your phone down. And I think that all of us can identify with that. And so I guarantee you that kids are more depressed nowadays. You know, I don't think that the solution should be like very lazily saying here's some drugs. I think no, I agree with that. I think it's like very lazy. I don't think that people realize how negative social media can be, especially adults, because for the most part, adults have a better interaction with social media. I'd say a little bit.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's just being a kid is hard, so it's just harder with that that interaction. So adults are like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. We're evolving very fast as a society from a social and a technological perspective. So I'm never like, my mother doesn't know dick about shit about what the fuck is going on when it comes to anything, Yeah. So that's how kids are experiencing the world, and so I think that there is more anxiety, depression. I just think that we could deal with it in a better way.
But I think you said what I said, but just a bit differently. You said it's like, you named like social media and stuff. Basically, that's what I said. I was like, it's our culture. That's a big part of our culture. Is like this excessive social media use.
Yeah, sure.
So
yeah.
I think that's sort of like the brainwashing, is that we think that this is like, it's weird to not be depressed. It's like, it's weird to not be on social media, and that's the brainwashing.
That comes into the second factor too. Is like that it's cool to be depressed now, though, right? Like I understand what you mean. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool to be a victim now. Like we don't talk about things in a way where it's like, okay, you might have autism, and this can impact you like this, so let's help you. Now everybody on TikTok wants autism. They want to have ADHD. They self-diagnose.
Insane to me, yeah.
Yeah, people want. It's like a victim culture. They want to identify with some kind of an oppression.
I don't know how you feel about this, but I think that's a lot of like people say like non-binary. I genuinely feel like that's just people who are like just bored, because we turn the word gender into something that can just mean everything. Where it's like gender it's not sex. So it's like, okay, it's not sex. Then what is it? Well, it's how you feel. It's like, okay, well then what? It's like, well, I don't feel like a boy or a girl. It's like, well then what does that mean though? You know what I mean? It's like it's like a nothing. I don't know.
No, I get what you're saying. I mean, gender to me, my understanding of gender is like the sex of your mind, if that makes sense, right? We have a body sex that you can't change. I'm a male, right? But then people have an experience in their mind that is kind of disconnected from their body, where they have like a different idea of themselves, and it gets almost like spiritual when it comes to gender in some cases, which I don't necessarily think is anything wrong. There are people, I think for me, like people with gender dysphoria that are diagnosed, that's like a very easy for me to be like, that's obviously valid. And there are trans people that are non-binary with gender dysphoria. When it comes to people nowadays, I think that there are some people that are experiencing what you'd call like gender euphoria, where this just feels right. But then I also think that there's a lot of young kids that are just kind of fucking around and looking to be able to identify with something.
That's what I'm saying.
There's
like,
some. I just wouldn't say all of them.
With people, and it's like I check in on them. It's like, oh, you're they them now. Like, you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
It's like I don't know, man. Like,
I don't think
like
it's everybody. I don't think it's every non-binary person is invalid. Some people are like they're experimenting with their gender and whatnot. I don't think it's that big of a deal. But there are some people who are doing it for attention. Like I do think that there are some people that are doing it for attention.
No, I mean, is it as harmful as like depression and suicide? Obviously not.
Probably not.
But do I think it's like stupid? Yeah, I do. I don't think it's really like, I don't think it comes from anywhere.
Well, for me personally, I just don't get it, and so I don't think it's stupid. It's just something that like I don't identify with. Like I don't really get it, but like God bless them. I will say that something that's interesting is my understanding is that when it comes to non-binary people, we see like a lot of young, we'll say assigned female at birth people, a lot of people who are born women, identifying as non-binary. And part of me feels like the reason for that is because social media, and this is just me ranting, and shows young girls that like sex is like, that's who they're supposed to be, is this very sexualized figure so much, mixed with like, we obviously try to educate people on not, like especially young girls, on not getting, or that there are dangerous men out there. That I think that all these different pressures overall sometimes might make some of these girls not want to be a woman, because being a woman is a scary thing, the way that we talk about it. Like obviously be safe, but then sometimes there are people, on the internet will be very sensationalized when it comes to pedophilia and whatnot, and like everything feels like everything is grooming now, everything is rape now, it's violently dangerous to be a woman, and there are dangers, and it's very disproportionate, and on top of that you're a sex icon or you're a sex symbol, and I think it scares a lot of young girls into being like, I don't want to be a girl anymore, which I totally get. I think part of it might come from that.
Yeah, I wish that there was like I don't know if you'd call it feminism, but they're like the opposite of that, where you just embrace
Meninism.
Who you are. No, not for men, but like for women, because that already is happening for men. There's definitely is a movement to just like reclaim your masculinity, and I've seen that for sure. I think it's a very
sure,
good thing.
Yeah. I suppose it depends on how you're doing it. I think that people who are non-binary, though, they would say that they are like, that is who they truly are, right? So like, I know what you mean, just to kind of identify, the way they were born or whatnot. But for them, it's like, oh, this is who I'm supposed to be. This is very much my authentic self.
No, I'm responding to what you said about women not wanting to be women.
No. I know what you're saying is that like, I think that there should be a movement that's like, hey, just be a woman. Where I'm saying that these people who are not identifying, it's not like an active thing, who are identifying as non-binary, that to them is their authentic self, and it's something that's a little bit more like almost philosophical.
Yeah, I feel like though if our culture was a bit different and like maybe the course of the pandemic went a bit differently and we weren't locked up or anything, depending on what would happen, I think that there could have been a totally because I think it's a reflection of like what you're seeing, right? It's like you see all these kids because there definitely is I see more kids, I see more young men in the gym now than I did last year.
Mhm.
And then that was more than the year before. Say what you want on Andrew Tate, but everybody in the gym, even if you don't like him,
Yeah,
I genuinely think that there's like you understand that like he was a force for like pushing people in the right direction. Obviously, like if you want to like talk about him as a person, you can criticize him, right? But sort of like
definitely. Yeah.
what he led people to, I think is like a net positive. And sort of like what, because I've definitely seen that, but it's like now you see Demi Lovato as non-binary, and then you see Instagram as the option to put she they, which is literally no different than she her as like your thing. It's like
Mhm.
it's I don't know if we made it popular. It's like we had like a female Andrew Tate that basically was like love your sisters, love there was like this sorority, this sisterhood of like building women up and stuff, but not in like I don't know if you'd call it feminism or something, but it was like an authentic embrace of feminine energy and like the role of women rather than the sort of like perversion or rejection of it. Or I think that would be powerful because that's what Andrew Tate was. I mean, it was like authentic, or I don't know if you think it's authentic, but it was like staunch masculinity. And obviously like,
Something.
I'm not like a Tate or Todd. Like I think obviously whatever the centrist enlightened take is like, oh, I agree with some of what he says, but I genuinely do. I genuinely do believe in only some of what he says.
Yeah. Well, okay, so there's obviously like a lot going on there. Let's see. So when it comes to Andrew Tate, like I understand what
Yeah, I
you're
hope
saying.
you don't mind. I just talk about like 30 things at
No,
once.
no. It's fine. I'm writing stuff down on the side this way, like, and then bring them up as we
Yeah,
talk
we'll
about
go
it.
back to Chris Tyson later.
Oh yeah, we could. Okay, so for Andrew Tate, first of all, not a particular fan. I don't know if you're super aware of a lot of the information against him, but based on what he said about himself, I mean, he is a sex trafficker, right? And I don't think that that's a very good male role model. I don't know if you've seen the information or if you necessarily agree with that. But based on what he said, he talks about how he engages in like that lover boy method to get girls from other countries to come to Romania with the promise that he's going to be in a relationship with them, and then he has his bottom bitch work on them effectively in some kind of a grooming scenario. There's some instances where he may have taken away passports. He's definitely stole money from the girls by telling them that like they're going to pay taxes and then not having them pay taxes. There's him talking about how he's treated like his webcam models in a very unique way, like they're prostitutes. He's talked about how he has to have sex with every single one of his employees, his female employees. So I understand what you're saying when it said when you may see more people in the gym. I do go to the gym. I know I'm fat, but I do go to the gym. I haven't seen necessarily any more people over my years. I've historically trained for like strongman training.
Yeah. Well, it's because it's a lot of them are teenage boys.
Sure.
Right? So
Okay.
I live right by a high school, and I graduated, so I see more of like the young boys that like the sophomores and juniors in high school. Way more of them that are going now than they were. And yeah, that has to do with pandemic, but I don't think it's just that in isolation. I do believe there is a resurgence of masculinity among young men,
and that's a good
there's
thing.
There's an attempt. I definitely think it's a good thing.
And
the means in which we got there is like you can say Andrew Tate's a sex trafficker. I would say I'm not going to comment on the ongoing investigation. I have no idea what's happening. I'm not going to agree or disagree with you because I don't have a take. I have to see information.
That's fair enough.
But the point is like the outcome that I've seen for people that I live nearby. It's just like the real world that I live in has been positively affected by the movement, I would say. So that's a really good thing for me.
Sure, I would say that is a good impact. I don't think that it comes at a positive thing, especially even if he's not a sex trafficker, which based on the information. But even if we put that aside, he's still incredibly sexist to women and treats women like shit and thinks women are like less.
Yeah, that's why I'm not really talking about him specifically.
But I do understand what you're saying. Yeah, no, I just felt the need to
like if you see one of those edits of Ethan Klein saying,
yeah,
life's too short to exercise, and then it's like the Patrick Bateman walking with the funk. Like, that's
for that though. I think that he was making a joke, and that people took it a little bit too seriously, and they give him a little too much slack. I understand that he can. There are times where he's not a great person. I do understand that, but I think that was a bit of a joke.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the fact that people will see just like edits of like Nikocado Avocado stuffing his face and stuff, and then it'll cut from that to like Sigma music.
Yeah,
and
Sigma
I
yeah.
see there's more of that. There's more Andrew Tate. There's more. I've also just seen more gym content as well. Like people just posting more about this is how you work out. This is how you work.
Well, that's one thing I wanted to say is
lateral delts, biceps. It's all these different things. So I just think it's all one thing. It's not just Andrew Tate. It's not just fucking Sigma edits or Sneeko or anything like that. It's a movement. It's a conglomeration of all these sorts of different things that I think have positively pushed young men like in high school to take action into maybe fraternity, brotherhood, gymming, whatever, man. And I think that's a good thing. I see it. I
think it's great that people go to. I think everybody should do at least one thing for like their physical self in some capacity, whether it's like weightlifting or whatnot. What I will say though is that from a lot of these predominant manosphere guys that talk about going to the gym, I haven't seen a single one of them give actual gym advice other than you should go, which is a little bit annoying and troubling. Like they never say like, hey, listen, this is how you start, which from a strength training perspective, not a single time.
Who have you seen? Who?
Andrew Tate, Fresh and Fit, and Sneeko. They've never talked about like what you should do once you get to the gym.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, I think Fresh and Fit is like, I mean, that's like a meme. Like, I don't think anybody listens to them, but
unfortunately, a lot of people do. Yeah, but no. Well, I guess the areas that you're seeing it, maybe they're just more motivational gym stuff.
Well, yeah. I also think of like JRE, like Joe Rogan. I think is like he gives really good advice too.
Oh, I'm sure he does. Oh yeah, for sure. I
would say that he's manosphere adjacent or whatever movement you want to call it adjacent. So
yeah, he's just like a dude that's saying like it's okay to be a dude. I get that.
Yeah, I mean, he's also blown up too. So I don't think he's really part of it. But again, like I said, it's a conglomerate, so it's definitely helpful.
Yeah, sure. That part is good. It's good to get people back into him. I mean, I've been going back.
But I don't know if that's true. I don't know if Andrew Tate is. Well, I mean, doesn't he post videos of him training? Like, I don't.
Sure, but when it comes to like somebody who has never gone to the gym before going to the gym, I mean, you posting a video of you training isn't going to give anybody specific like weightlifting advice. Like for me, I always recommend people look into a book called Starting Strength. It's like a 5x5 strong list type thing. It's really good to focus on like a high frequency, low volume type of movements to get your shit together so that you can learn how to actually execute like a squat, a bench, a deadlift, et cetera, and then kind of build from there. Like looking at people like Alan Thrall and whatnot to get your technique down. Though that's real places to actually go. A lot of people either just won't talk about specifics or they'll give you some bullshit like copy pasted routine off of bodybuilding.com. That's like, oh, go bench for 4 sets of 8 to 10 or 8 to 12, which isn't a routine. It's just like numbers. There needs to be deloading protocols. There needs to be progressive overload. There needs to be a bunch of different things existing in a routine in order for it to be good. So that's one of the things, unfortunately, I don't see a lot when people talk about weight training.
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't, whether or not Andrew Tate's posting his full workout regimen, I think is somewhat irrelevant because at the end of the day, like I said, it's a push in the right direction.
Yeah, I get that.
But also, even if he's just like do some fucking push-ups again, like maybe that's not.
I understand what you're saying.
I don't know, like whether or not that's like really.
For me,
quality information, I think you're still giving something.
I get that. Well, here's the thing for me is that a lot of times what happens, and that's just fundamentally in the manosphere spaces, is they'll pretend to be like male advocates. And what they do is they focus like 99% of their time just shitting on women. And then they'll say, hey, go to the gym. That's really good advice to go to the gym, but there's no in-depth about it. You're not going to allow your audience that is actively listening to you you're not giving them the tools to actually go to the gym in a long-term capacity. So for the terrible dog shit advice that they give outside of go to the gym, it's not really very substantial. It'd be one thing if they were like super in-depth and they were giving you a lot of information on like how to go to the gym and then also being very sexist. But they're not. They're just being like real pieces of shit and then being like, by the way, you should go to the gym. It's like, yeah, you should go to the gym. But that's the point more that I'm making when it comes to kind of bringing all that together.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. Okay, so you've brought up a female Andrew Tate to help women feel like they can be who they are. Before, what would that look like to you? I'm curious.
Well, I see a lot of contradictory things that are under the umbrella of quote feminism that I don't understand. I see people like women that are dressing like they're underdressing when they're going out, or like they're dressing like they literally just go out like in underwear and stuff, and they walk around in bikinis and stuff. And then like you actually ask like why are you dressed like this? Like I had a girl show up to class on the last week, just like literally in like a bikini, basically. And I don't I mean, like, at the end of the day, like, I don't give a fuck, right? Like, but but it does say something. It's like, what do you? Because you're trying to say something when you do that. Because it'll often be like, oh, I'm dressing how I want, or it's like I'm comfortable with this, or it's because, well, I'm reclaiming my autonomy. I'm dressing in a sense, in a way that's like empowering or something. And it does it's supposed to have this sort of like pseudo feminist, like quasi empowering undertone of like, I'm so empowering, look at like me dressed like a slut. It's just like, I don't, it's like, that to me is not real feminism. Like, there's this, I saw this video of it was one of those street interviews, those like it's complicated things, and the girl basically said like, oh, I dress this way, I underdress because of the feminists, like the flappers that fought for the right to vote. It's like, that's not what they didn't, that wasn't their movement. Like, at this point, like, you've like hijacked what it actually was, because you're saying like, oh, like, feminism is about like equal rights and everything like that, but I can also dress basically like I'm going swimming while I'm in class, because it's like, I don't know, it's like vaguely empowering. It
Yeah.
doesn't really make sense.
So to me, I think that like people who dress provocatively, like, it is obviously attention-seeking behavior, whether it's a man or a woman. I think that the point that they're trying to make, well, to be absolutely clear, somebody like that's probably just trying to dress like a little bit sexual and justify it. But I think that kind of the point is like, hey, we can wear what we want. And I don't care if I get like negative male attention or something. I do kind of agree that some of that's just kind of silly.
Yeah, it's cope. Like, you're not being empowering by being naked, Same thing with OnlyFans. That's the dumbest stuff. They think it's feminist to do OnlyFans. Like, that's not empowering. It's the exact opposite. Like, you've reduced yourself to just a fleshlight. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like a walking, breathing thing that men can pleasure themselves to pictures of. It's not empowering at all. It's the exact opposite. And they'll be like, this is empowering. This is me feeling beautiful and this and that. And it's like, well, if you actually look at the roots of feminism, they weren't looking to get to the point where women could just go back to being fucking objects. It's like, well, we're not objects was the initial thing, and we're back to fucking, well, I can be an object if I want.
Yeah.
It's really stupid. And I think people who advocate, like, I think, so when I said female Andrew Tate, I think it's a girl who gets up on there and says, OnlyFans is not empowering. Dressing provocatively isn't empowering. It's empowering to stick, with other women and build each other up, and you build goals with each other, team building, all this sorts of stuff. Because I feel like there isn't like a unified feminine conscience right now, in the same way that there is sort of like a somewhat unified male conscience.
Well, hold on. Yes. Okay, so sorry, you said like a lot of things. I just wrote them down. Okay, all right. So I'm gonna start with OnlyFans. I agree. I don't think it's a good thing, especially that there seems to be almost like a level of advocacy for young girls to do OnlyFans, like, and it's glorified in a way where it's like, oh, it's just a silly little funny little thing. And they have a lot of fun, but at the end of the day, it can be something that's very mentally stressful and difficult to do, because you're showing your body off, and I think that will make you feel very objectified. Their argument, though, is that they're controlling that objectification and they're making money off of themselves. Like, historically, prostitutes, they didn't really have power over themselves, generally speaking. Usually, like, guys would control them in some capacity, and would take the money. Pimps have always taken disproportionately high amounts of money. They can be very abusive. And so the idea of the empowerment is to be able to have that financial control over it and be able to sell your body, and without society ideally judging you for being a bad person for selling your body, because you're just selling in the same way that like you and I might sell our labor. They're selling their labor as well. Like, it's part of the same thing. So that's the concept. Personally,
yeah, but I reject the idea that sexual liberation and feminism are complementary.
Why? I guess why?
Well, because I don't think that it's because it comes back to empowering oneself, and I don't think that, being able to sleep with whoever you want whenever you want actually does improve the quality of your life in the long term. But there are studies that show that. I mean, let's talk about married people are a lot more happy, and I don't think that it leads people to a fulfilling life, especially young women.
Sure.
Especially young women that are already like heavily influenced by social media and stuff, and you're telling them like, oh, get your money up, post my OF and everything, and it's like, oh, it's my hoe season, it's hot girl summer, but then it's echoed by like, you know, fucking like these female rappers and everything. It's like this really doesn't do anything good for you guys, you know?
Well, I think that the argument there, when you say that it's not empowering, it may not be. I know these statistics you're talking about, and they tend to say that the lower or the fewer partners a person has, the happier they are. That being said,
say that one more time.
The statistic you're referencing talks about like have the fewer partners you have, the happier you generally report your marriage to be in a long-term capacity.
That's one of them.
But the same is also said for men. Like the statistics are both for like the higher body count anybody has, generally the less happy they are, whether they're a guy or a girl. And the concept of like the sexual liberation, it's not necessarily to be happier, it's to have the ability to do what a man does without getting disproportionately higher amounts of criticism, right? So like guys go around fucking a bunch of girls, people tend to say like those guys are really cool, but when a girl does it, obviously women get shit on for engaging in the same behavior. At the end of the day, I don't think anybody that's going around fucking a bunch of people, I think that that's just gross in general. But the idea is to keep it proportionate to both of them, to not devalue a woman because she has a lot of sex and not to praise a man just because he has a lot of sex.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I don't even, I really don't, because people say like men are getting all this praise for having lots of sex.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably I mean it's more true than it is for women. Like obviously men get less backlash or whatever for saying I have a lot of sex than women do. But I really don't think it's as high as people say it is.
It historically has been very
historically. But
nowadays
I feel
it's
like
changing.
It's just overplayed. It's just cheesy. Like I think that Playboy sort of like, you know, where it's like, oh, I have all these bitches. It's just like, I don't think people don't really, or at least young men, they don't find that. At least from what
I think a lot of young men do. Like that's a central part of like the Andrew Tate manosphere stuff is like talking about how cool it is to make a lot of money and fuck a bunch of girls and have as many girlfriends as possible and to cheat on your partner, and it's okay if a man cheats. Well, but that is
well, yeah. But when I say when most guys say like, oh, I only agree with some of it. That's what I think. That's what part of what they're saying is like, I don't think it is good for men to cheat. I don't like that the polyamory part of it, or like the
cheating isn't polyamory.
Infidelity,
yeah. But I understand what you're saying.
Whatever, yeah.
Maybe. Let's hope so. But that's where it comes from. It's just the idea of having equal standards for men and women having sex with a lot of people, which I think is gross in general.
But either way, men or women, it does not enrich your life. Okay, it's true for men and women. Young men do not actually get fulfilled when they fuck a bunch of people, and that's just true.
Andrew Tate would say you have low testosterone.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's unfulfilling.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I've, I don't know if I've done my level of experimenting. I've been a little bit of a dog when I was younger, and I'll say I'm much happier now that I'm married and with my wife. So I agree with that. Some people do need to get out of their system, but for people, I would say that just they should treat men and women the same when it comes to that. But that's where that like sexual liberation comes from. It gives women the ability to make that equal choice to a man, whether it's a good or a bad choice.
Yeah, but that's sort of like the thing is it's like, why would you fight for a choice that almost is objectively bad across the board?
Well, I think that individuals might value having sex feels good. Again, I tend to agree overall, but I will say that there is something positive to getting it out of your system for some people. Okay. Yeah, no, I agree. But I think that like having sex without being judged relentlessly, that's the only goal. You know, whether it's a mistake or not is an irrelevance. I mean, we can talk about the same thing with alcohol. We shouldn't have alcohol, right? Like nobody should need alcohol. It's bad for you. It's addictive, but we still allow it because there are like short bursts of fun. And if you do it like safely and responsibly, it's a good thing. There is such thing as too much, but people have the ability to make that decision for themselves, and hopefully they make the right one rather than banning like all vices. But at the very least, if we're going to ban a vice, it should be equal.
Well, but I don't know if that's a good comparison, because at the end of the day, like you have the Dare and you have health in your middle school that's saying, yeah, well, alcohol is mostly bad and here's why.
We also have health classes.
Very careful.
No, but we also have like health class that tells you that if you have sex once, you're going to get an STD and you're going to die. And then, even with more reasonable health care for kids, which we need, it'll still warn them of the dangers of having too much sex and unprotected sex. So in the same way where we have like institutions where like there that's warn against too much drinking, we have institutions that warn against too much sex. So we still have those.
I don't think that there's as much as a sort of cultural push to say it's awesome to drink all the time and get fucking wasted than it is to than there is to tell young girls that they should pursue OnlyFans and they should be in their hoe phase and they should have a hot girl summer.
I understand what you're saying. I just don't see it as much as like this. I understand there are aspects where, and this was something that I think is winding down. But where it's like, oh, OnlyFans is great, you should do it. We're seeing more and more horror stories from OnlyFans of like, hey, you
well, yeah, eventually, right? I mean, it makes sense.
Sure, but that's the thing is OnlyFans is very new. I don't think that we like some girls have like the hoe summer, whatever. Guys do the same thing. They'll be like, oh, we're gonna be, we're gonna fuck around. I don't think it's as massively like huge of a problem as we think it is. I think that this is something that's somewhat new, especially for women, to sexual liberation. So it's being talked about, and then there's going to be more mistakes when a thing is new as it kind of recenters itself and gets everything back into where it's supposed to be. That's just kind of what happens.
I notice it a lot because I'm in college. I'm not going to say where I go, but where I go, it's sort of like there's a lot of attractive girls there. So and a lot of them are basically the archetype that we're describing, and they're not, like I'll go by the pool and it's just like I walk around and they're just not like, you could just tell like there's just nothing going on with them and they just seem miserable.
Maybe, but that's their right to be able to
right
explore.
And I'm saying
that's the whole point of that. Yeah.
And that's why I said like the whatever female Andrew Tate or something what would be good, because you could have sort of a motherly figure come in and say, ladies, we're not about this, we could do better, and we could just do you know what I'm saying, like there's
I get what you're saying. I don't think that women are in dire need of like a motherly figure. From my experience, this could be very anecdotal, to me it seems like there are more young men and men who sign on to the philosophy of what it means to be a real man and a masculine man, which is something that like I appreciate. Versus like women, I haven't seen a lot of women being like, I'm a woman. Like I don't know that like there's something different about men versus women.
That's what I'm saying.
But I don't.
Problem.
I know. But that's the thing. I don't know if it's necessarily a problem. I think, and I don't know why, but I think that for men there's something very appealing for some reason. This isn't something that I've super explored, but about identifying as a man, as something that has been historically very powerful. Like being a man is very powerful. Women, I don't see it as much. Like even with my wife, like what it means to be like, I guide myself and my moral philosophy based on being a good man and a good husband, trying my best to do those things, and that's where I look to. My wife doesn't really do that. She just tries to be a good person. There's something about men that like really want to be men, but I don't know if it's because I don't think it's necessarily a negative. For women, it might be because women used to be, well, what's a woman to a historically real man? It's an object that exists to be subservient to a man. So if there's a problem, maybe it's because the idea of or concept of what it means to be a woman isn't really a very powerful thing to our society, or maybe women just don't have that focus, like that primal focus, for whatever reason. Maybe it's partially social, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing.
Well, I don't think it would be a bad thing if it wasn't, if it was going well,
Well, I think things are going okay.
They could be better. I'll say that.
Well, that's true, but we could be better for both men and women too, right? Like it's a across the board kind of a thing.
Right, I suppose, but again, it is anecdotal. But I'm telling you, like the amount, because I walk past hundreds of girls a day, right?
Do you ever talk? Do you talk to them? Do you say hello and like, do you have a girlfriend?
Yeah, I have a girlfriend. Okay,
good. I'm just wondering if you're avoiding them or if you're talking to them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, your chat was like calling me an incel, which I thought was pretty funny.
Oh, I'm not even paying attention to my chat. Is that what they're saying? I wouldn't mind them too much. They also like buzzwords sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but
Oh, okay. What were you saying? Oh, yeah. I don't think things are that bad. I don't think that.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, it's like, I guess it obviously depends on what you mean by that bad, but it's just not
I think a lot of the problems that we're suffering from are not men and women's problems. I think that, like, especially on the internet, the biggest things that the internet likes to talk about is basically centralizes around men and women in a capacity of like a dangerous, or not dangerous, or like a wrong, disproportionate capacity, right? Everything is LGBTQ, or what does it mean to be a real man or woman, which I think are almost very similar to each other. That's all the discourse. But as boring as it sounds, I think that most of our problems stem from there's an issue with media sensationalization. There's an issue of we definitely could use more money in the middle class, more robust like welfare features, like some kind of like healthcare. There's poverty issues, there's homelessness issues, there's like mental health issues with people like on the streets. There are so many real problems that we're experiencing, whether you have like a more conservative or progressive solution, and either is fine. I don't really care as long as we get there. Those are like the real issues. Like people don't realize how difficult it is just to not have a lot of money. It creates a lot of anger problems and it destroys relationships. And we talk a lot about men versus women, but in the real world, like these things don't necessarily matter as much. And I would say most of our
100%.
issues, I would say most of our issues aren't because women don't have a good enough woman role model.
No. Yeah, no.
It's mostly like
I'm
money.
not making it right. Yeah. No, I totally agree. It's not like a real problem in the sense that it has like tangible negative impacts. It's like a cultural critic, a cultural criticism. You know, it's not like
Sure.
an actual like, oh, like we're gonna pass legislation to. You understand what I'm saying? I think it just has to do with like where we are, and it has to do with social media and trends and everything like that. And it's just something that I observe a lot because, and like I said, I pass by a lot of women, and I sort of I see it online, I see it, in real life, and I just take note. I just see it. So,
I get that. I would just be careful.
It's just bothersome because I've met a lot of nice women. I've met a lot of women that are just lovely and the best. But I mean, it could just be where I'm at. But I also see a lot of women that are just like they just seem like really it's just like kind of sad,
Yeah, and I think that if there's a consistent pattern of these women being very sad about those life choices, that we'll probably see like kind of like a rebound so I don't think it's like I just don't think it's like as big as an issue. And I think that like we get very poisoned on the internet of making it seem like issues of like LGBTQ and race and gender are like the biggest problems when like bigger problems.
For sure.
Money is a huge problem, and I think it's boring because it's so simple. But sometimes we get a little distracted online and we think like, oh my God, this is like the biggest thing. But when it's like, it's not necessarily the biggest thing. Like the world isn't collapsing because men aren't quote unquote real men.
100%.
Nerds run the world at this point. Back in the day, a real man is like human. Now fucking nerds are like the most important people. So, that's just a reality. We fight
Sam Bankman-Fried.
I mean, we fight all of our wars online now. It's all misinformation, disinformation campaigns, and propaganda, and we need like physically strong men too, but at the end of the day, that's.
I believe that the thought to therapy pipeline is very real.
What is that? What do you mean the
thought to therapy pipeline?
What's that? Yeah.
Well, it's like you have your hoe face, and then you're just very depressed afterward.
Thought to therapy. Okay, I thought you meant like thoughts. Like you have a thought, and then somehow that gets to therapy. I was confused. Maybe I don't know the statistics about fucking around. I would, maybe if they get sexually assaulted. I think for the most part, it's just. I think for the most part, it's just
not
sex.
Just that.
I don't think that there's nothing necessarily that harmful about fucking around. But it's possible. But even that, you haven't said that, like, are thoughts gender specific, or is it only women, or is there men too?
Well, I think it's well, obviously it is both men and women. Like I think men can become void from being like hypersexual and everything. But I think with women, it is a I think it tends to have a bigger effect on them. Just from what I've seen, I don't know why.
Why? Yeah, that's my question, because I haven't seen that. Like for me personally, what I would say is that I think that a lot of sex in general can be very toxic, whether it's a man or a woman. Especially when you're going through your developmental phase, your early 20s, your mid 20s, and you're setting the pattern of like being very focused on trying to have sex, which is what happens, right? Like I used to be like kind of a fuckboy, like fat women exist, and I'd fuck a lot of fat women.
But do you actually not believe that it happens? Like you don't?
No, what I'm saying is that I think
girls like have a lot of sex and then they're just like unhappy afterward.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that like just fun, whether it's a man or a woman. Going through your young years, like your 20s and your 25s, and your primary focus is like, sex, whether you're a man or a woman, that's going to lead you to have a very sexually focused life, and it's going to make it difficult for you to settle down with one person without thinking about sex constantly and being a huge thing. Whereas I think people who maybe focus on building themselves more, that sex is part of their life, in a healthy way, those people are more balanced. But what I'm saying is that people who hyper focus on sex that are hoes, thoughts, whether they're boys or girls, they're going to have a problem with building relationships and their happiness in general. And like, I'm somebody who was there. Like, I used to fuck around a lot. Like I said, like, I am fat, but there are a lot of fat girls exist. Wasn't super hard to get girls. I had a decent job. I'm tall. I have a deep voice, you know. So now as I'm older, it took a little bit of an adjustment when I was with my wife, like, because we historically were poly for a while, and you know, I had to very focus. And now that we're committed to just each other, it's been very fulfilling. But like, I think it does kind of, to an extent, rot your brain to focus too much on sex, whether you're a guy or a girl, in a way that's, I think, dangerous for building meaningful, loving connections, which are very important.
Yeah, I agree.
So I don't think it's just like a male or a female specific thing. I think it's just in general.
Well, I don't know if I've seen like worse results for women. Like, I've had some of my girlfriends from high school, like you know, they'll call me and they'll be like almost in tears, saying like, oh, like, I'm like, these guys, like, you know, he blocked me after one night and everything, and it's like, I just, like, you know, and they're just like distraught. And I'm just like, what did you expect? You know, like, it's like you're pursuing this like hedonism. Do you not like? Well, it's shallow. It's surface level.
In that perspective, what you just said, it sounds like you just said that this girl, like a girl, messaged you, or girls will message you and say like, oh, this guy just had sex with me, and then he ghosted her. Right? That's basically what you said.
Well, I mean, that's like one thing, but I'll have like,
well, but to me,
like, I'll catch up with them from a few months ago. Like, how you been? It's like, nah. It's like, I haven't been great. I asked them like what they're doing. And it's like, well, I can see why you're not doing great. It's like, you know, you're just kind of like, you're just like on Tinder, you're just like fucking around, you're not doing, well, you know. To
the first person, like the first scenario you built up, to me that sounds like a fuckboy successfully knocked their target, right? Like, that's a guy who probably pretended to actually care about a girl until they got pussy, and then they stopped talking to him. So that's more of an issue with, like, you know, the way men versus women interact. And, you know, if a woman goes on Tinder looking, and I understand Tinder is usually a place for casual sex, but if a woman goes on Tinder to look for like a potential partner, and then they got some fuckboy asshole promising them the world, saying like, oh yeah, I'll date you, blah blah blah, and then they just ghost them afterwards, that's more of an issue with men than it is with women, other than you could say that that woman's being a bit naive. But yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
Well, I think it is naivety. Like, what do you expect?
Right, but those women aren't engaging in trying to have casual sex. Those women are trying to build relationships, and they just trust.
You're just talking about a separate woman?
Well, no, the woman that you said, the first one, you talked about how she was like, oh, I fucked this guy and he ghosted me, basically.
Well, yeah, but this was after, like, you know, like, she was doing the same thing, like twice a week.
Okay,
like,
so that's a little bit of a different scenario. Sure, okay. Well, that's a conversation about how women should be more withholding of sex. I think that, like, for men, a lot of times they're very sexually focused, and a man will not respect you if you don't fuck with them.
Yeah,
that's
what I'm saying.
Sure, I get that.
That's like my main hypothesis, that like, you know, the sexual liberation movement is not.
Well, but if you want to have sex, do your thing. But if you're looking for a relationship as a woman, you're better off withholding sex for the couple of dates, because a man, unfortunately, men will not respect you if you give it up too easy.
Well, I don't know if it's just a relationship. I think it's just like, if, you know, just a baseline higher level of happiness and fulfillment.
Well, what I'm talking about is like a relationship between men and women, where like a man who is able to get sex from a girl too quickly generally isn't going to respect that woman, and so you should try to, you know, take your time with it, and don't instantaneously like give it up. That's what
yeah. I mean, fair enough.
So, but I understand what you're saying. I just don't think that men and women are as different as you think. There obviously is differences. Like, men tend to be more sexually driven, women tend to be more relationship driven. But overall, I think that too much sex, whether it's for a man and a woman, is going to reduce their ability to be able to get into a situation where they can be committed to one person as easily.
Yeah, your chat's driving me a little crazy, bro.
Why? What are they saying?
No, it's just I don't understand like what, like, how they could say, like, this guy says, like, you don't have male feelings that dive deep in their feelings like this. Like, no, my guy friends just don't feel like this.
Well,
you know?
Well, that's another conversation though. Do you think that men maybe are less forward about the way that they feel? Because
I lived with like 5 different guys. Pause. But like,
okay,
you know.
I'm just saying, as I know what you're saying, but as a guy, like my guy friends, we don't talk about anything emotional. Whereas with women, it seems to be a little bit more normalized to talk about more emotional stuff. And so part of it might be that your guy friends just aren't having this problem.
I genuinely don't, because we would talk like when I got to know my boys enough, obviously, like, you know, you don't tell them everything, like
That's what I'm saying.
time. But like I eventually learned about like some of my friends' traumas and stuff, and like this dude could tell me anything, right? And it was like you could genuinely tell, like, okay, yeah, no, this guy genuinely, this isn't the same level of emotional reaction for like similar things, for even like worse things, I would say, from like a guy just ghosting you, than like my girlfriends were having, you know. So I
Sure. I get what you're saying. I think that generally speaking, men probably don't express themselves the same way that women do in as healthy of a way. Like, I think that that is an issue with guys. It seems like you guys, maybe like the younger generation is better and better, which is a good thing. But generally speaking, guys will kind of keep a lot of stuff in, whereas women are better at expressing that. Like, women generally, part of being feminine, or a strength of women, I think, is like being more emotionally intelligent than men. Of course, there are strengths to men as well, but I think that is one of those issues too. You know, men like bottling things up and holding them in, and I think I've been there as well. And that's, you know, there's a lot of guys, like, think about it when it comes to, we'll go to part of that's like a fear of being called like, oh, like gay in some capacity, like, oh, you didn't enjoy that, oh, you didn't this, you didn't that. So I think that there is kind of like a general issue when it comes to that. You even look at like men and suicide rates, they tend to be, well, at least better at taking their own lives. And so I think, you know, if you look at homeless people, they tend to be disproportionately men. I think that drug addicts as well, disproportionately men. Alcoholics, disproportionately men. You look at all these different things, and to me, I'm seeing like self-medication.
But that's all not because of like relationships. And
no,
sex.
but
It's
I know,
because of, like,
but I
that's
think
because of way other different
I
things.
think that a lot of it speaks to a man's like ego of not wanting to ask for help and not expressing themselves out of fear of being perceived as weak. And I think that that kind of, to an extent, ties into the greater conversation of men not expressing themselves when they have problems to the same degree that women do.
Yeah, I mean, maybe,
You know, so
perhaps
it's possible. Yeah. Wow, we got really far away from Chris Tyson.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting conversation.
Oh yeah, for sure. I am curious. What was the video that the person, like, who
Jaden?
made? Oh, Jaden made the video about it.
Yeah, just
Oh shit,
reacted to it.
Jaden, you and Jaden have got like a little bit of a lover's quarrel going on, huh?
It's just so weird because, you know, like last year I met him at VidCon, and we were like in the same Airbnb for like a bit, and I was so nice. Like, I bought him a pizza and stuff, and I actually had no issue, but it's like it just felt, it's just a complete different monster, or not monster, I should say, 'cause that's a fucking weird word, like a different beast online, you know? Like, this motherfucker needs to get off the internet. You could just tell, like,
what video was it that you were talking about? I'm just curious. Like,
it's on
Jalen Live,
his second channel, yeah, where he just reacted to it. He said that, like, I'm the reason that queer kids kill themselves. It was like it was like a meme.
What video?
It's like, you can't be real.
I'm probably not gonna react to it. I'm just curious.
It was called, like, it was whatever it's called, Chris Tyson, whatever it's called.
Was I wrong about Chris Tyson?
Yeah, that video.
I'm
not a bigot.
No. Damn. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I don't think that you're the reason that young LGBTQ people are taking their lives.
Why? Thank you, Papa. Good. I really appreciate.
I think that
man.
maybe, I don't know what you said. There's possible that there's things that you might be expressing that could make an LGBTQ person in high school feel uncomfortable. But I also
don't have to watch me. It's a fucking YouTube.
No.
Watch it if you're bored and you want to fucking laugh.
That is absolutely true.
Like,
but
I
would say
the way he phrased it is if I'm like a pastor coming into the school and saying pray the gay away, and like, you have to listen to it, dude. I talk over Overwatch gameplay and make jokes that are like you would get if you're on the internet. Like, it's yeah,
for sure. I think that maybe, and this is being very charitable to Jalen, I haven't seen the video, but maybe they're speaking to like just the overall kind of concept where like maybe there are some young people who might not be super affirming. And so that overall mentality could make it uncomfortable for LGBTQ people.
Maybe.
But also Jalen, she is like LGBTQ and will take these topics more personally than like you or I, of course. So there's going to be a little bit of a different perspective. Some people could say they could speak more from the heart. Some people would say that they might be a little more biased about the situation. Really depends on your.
It was so
interpretation.
funny too because in the video, I get accused of being a sheltered religious kid,
Ooh,
which is like not.
Are
It's
you?
like not. No, not at all. I wasn't even religious growing up.
Now I might have to look at this. I have to get. I'm
It's
have
just
to get in
it's just
the middle of
funny.
this beef.
It's like it's just funny. It's like I'm the sheltered religious kid, dude. We were like the most average, like, family growing up. Like yeah, we're economically well off, like my family, but like. No, like there was no religion in my life growing up. I
So
literally,
there-
by myself, I came to Christ like 3 years ago.
I am
It had
not a-
nothing to do with anything in my family.
No, that's interesting.
Literally nothing. No.
Usually
I
goes
just
the opposite
Found
way.
some stuff on. Yeah, right. I just found a bunch of stuff on the internet and, actually, okay, maybe there's a little bit in my family. I knew that my grandma was Christian, and I sort of just like,
Okay.
well, I just knew that she didn't even talk to me about it, but I.
Acheeto plus.
Yeah, no, I basically like I knew that she believed in it, and I just looked into it more,
Mhm.
and I just sort of found it, and it all sort of, I just did my own sort of reading, and yeah, kind of found God.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, it does usually go
Well,
the
God
other
bless,
way.
yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
That's not a bad thing necessarily. I don't think
It was
that's
just
bad.
funny because it's like I'm a sheltered religious kid, and he also said that I find everything demonic, which is like what? It's like I don't. It's, none of it even make any sense. It's because this archetype of who you think I am built up is just not true.
Yeah. Okay. I have to look at it. I don't know specifically what they're talking about. What
Yeah.
are some of the takes? I'm curious about Chris Tyson that bother. Well, maybe part of it was we talked before where you expressed to an extent that like you think that Chris might be
Yeah.
robbing their kid of like a father figure.
Yeah, I said that. That
Yeah.
really upset him. He was like, I believe that's bullshit. Okay, I don't believe you need a masculine father figure. I don't.
I
care.
disagree with that. I think that you need him. I think it's good to have a very strong masculine and feminine figure in your life. So I agree with you with that. But
Yeah,
But I
unless you
would
want to end
say-
up like Jaden.
well, no shade to Jaden. Okay, for me, you could do whatever you want. For me personally, Jaden's, they're fine. I'm sure they're struggling. I know that they've had a little bit of an issue regulating their speech online. But anyway, I think we almost got there before we talked about how if you like, let's say that
Wait,
you,
I can't with this chat. That explains it right there. Gender role matters because of your financial status. Ding, ding, ding. Dude, I am the financial status. I became wealthy from doing YouTube.
I think
what-
I think what they're saying. I don't really.
I don't live in a fucking castle.
I don't
What are
know.
you talking?
I guess what they're saying is that you're
YouTube chat,
sheltered
man.
because you grew up with some money or something, and not necessarily a lot. I don't really know.
Literally does not. Okay.
But
Yeah.
what I was saying before is that let's say that we both agree that like Chris Tyson, and I don't fully agree with this take, but like let's say I agree with you and like Chris Tyson.
I'm the
is-
opposite of sheltered though. I live in New York, and I used to live in the city. It's like the gayest part of the fucking country besides San Fran.
Well, you could be gay.
I
And
was
sheltered.
what? Or what? No,
You
I'm
should
saying
stop-
I've been
oh.
exposed. I've been exposed to like everything at like a young
Oh,
age.
okay.
It's like,
I would try not to engage too much with the chat, but hold on. Let me just get
Oh.
the stats.
sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
I mean, they're
okay.
talking to me, you know.
I know they're just hate farmers. They're desperate for attention. That's why they're in the Papa Gut stream. They're fucking losers. Okay.
Fair enough.
They know I love them. Okay, so let's say I agreed that and I don't, but let's say I just conceded and I agreed that Chris Tyson transitioning is going to rob their child of a strong masculine figure or be like an overall net negative. Okay, but the thing is that I would say that this identity struggle that they have, gender dysphoria, them transitioning is overall better for the kid because they're going to be a happier parent rather than suppressing themselves to a way where they're going to be more toxic to their kid. So in the one sense where they might be losing a masculine figure, which I think you can get elsewhere, they're gaining a happier parent that's going to be able to have a better time raising them in a happy way.
Yeah, I agree with that. And
Yeah.
I think that also ties into the money thing, where it's like, what may not be provided in terms of what I said, strong masculine role model that can give you a compass and a guide to being a young man or whatever. You can sort of maybe handwave that a little bit, considering he's a multi-millionaire and
Yeah.
he's happier being who he is or something.
Yeah, he might be the sheltered one then. The kid might be the sheltered one,
Yeah, possibly.
which I don't know. That's not necessarily a good thing. But Yeah, no, I agree with you there to an extent. Like the money's definitely going to have a positive impact. I don't think that the world is ending. I feel bad for Chris. Overall, they just seem like a trans person that wants to exist, and everybody's telling them that they're going to be an abysmal parent that's going to ruin their child's lives, especially a lot of conservatives. You know, and I also think that, I don't know if this is something that you've noticed, but I would listen for it. There is an interesting thing when it comes to more conservative content creators, but you said you lived in America, so, but also conservative politicians, where there's really no meaningful conversation for any other issue except for people that are in the LGBTQ. I think it's perfectly reasonable to be skeptical and to say, hey, I have questions, but I haven't seen any other meaningful reform or anything else in the conversation, like about anything other than like, oh, like being gay is bad in some capacity. And so that all kind of ties into this overall like greater narrative where things, I think, get even more sensationalized as they should be getting. We're giving too much attention to a topic that like less than 5% of the United States population even identifies with, and yet like it is the #1 biggest issue. And I think that it's just a lot of anti-transness going on that kind of builds up. And if I was a trans person, I'd probably feel pretty shitty about myself, with like my existence and my healthcare that would be required to help me live a happy life, being denied and debated as if it's not that big of a deal.
Well, I think the average person in this country is too stupid to really engage in like a discussion about what actually may be important. Like, it is a lot easier to just say like, oh, like, because the gender debates are really simple. You don't need much background knowledge to engage with them.
Well, I think.
So,
well, I don't think that people are.
that's-
But the thing is, I don't think that people are too stupid. My thing is that I don't think that they're being directed correctly. Because like we talked about before, what's the biggest issue? It's money. That's the biggest issue. People. It's a
Yeah.
very simple concept.
Well, I
People
think
it's more money.
immigration is a big deal. I know I said I don't know much about it, or I'm sorry,
Maybe.
not that, but I mean I'm not the best at like delineating like what I believe. But I think immigration, not just in America but worldwide, I think population change is very like it has a big effect in a lot of different ways.
Maybe.
And then because it ties into a lot with trade, and I think trade is very important. And we're talking about like domestic manufacturing versus like offshoring, and I think that also like because it's big in the economy, which has to do with what you said, which is money.
Sure.
So if you look at like like how things are going, you can't like really just ignore immigration and like foreign affairs, like with trade and stuff.
Sure. I'm not super educated, like you said yourself, about immigration, but like, what is it about immigration that worries you? I guess I would ask.
Well, I don't know if it worries me. I know that it's a big what's the word? It's a big talking point right now. I think it actually has a bigger tangible impact than like next door neighbor liking dick.
Well, that's definitely for sure. I'm just wondering what you meant, because you mentioned like before. I might have just misheard you, but it seemed like you were alluding to like a change in demographics in a country or something. Maybe I just like misheard you. So I was wondering, what do you mean by that? Because if you mean like when it comes to outsourcing different products and materials, yeah, like that's definitely an issue, and that kind of ties
because
into cheap labor.
population changed. The size of the country expands at like a wide rate. The people in the country, it's like demographic shift. Like there's more of maybe people from this country or that country than normal, which is probably going to affect what comes in the country, whether like we're talking like culturally or in terms of like I don't know, like actual like customs or like drugs maybe, I don't know.
Okay. I'm trying to think about what you're saying. It's a lot of stuff. So are you saying that it's bad that we take people in from other countries, or are you just saying you don't want it to happen too fast? Is that?
No, I mean I'm just saying like it's I'm saying that's definitely probably a bigger deal than than like the LGBT stuff. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But I'm just wondering if it's like immigration in general, definitely a bigger deal than LGBTQ stuff in general. Right? Like I agree with that. But I mean, like, what is it? I'm just wondering, because I'm not trying to be like accusatory, and it just might be because of this topic usually gets a little weird. But are you saying that maybe we shouldn't take in like so many different people, or are you just like, I'm just curious when you say like demographics, or like letting the bad people, because for what I hear, and you may just not mean this, is like, when I hear, for example, is like, if we let too many Hispanic people in, that's how all the drugs are coming in. That's kind of what I'm hearing when you say that, but I don't. If that's what you're saying, that's what you're saying. I'm just wondering.
No. Well, I'm saying that. Well, that is definitely part of it. I think that if you look at like in the South, like especially from Mexico, there is a big problem with drugs. Like if you actually look at like charts and stuff, like
Mhm.
what's the fentanyl? It's rampant in like New Mexico and near the southern border and stuff. And there's a big increase there. So you definitely have to look at like when people immigrate, like how that process is taking place, who's overseeing it, how do we mitigate the amount of illegal substances that are entering this country. Yeah, for sure.
Sure. For a quick Google search, it seems like a lot of it's coming from China, the fentanyl. I get what you're saying,
Is that
but
true?
that's what I could be fault. That's what I looked into when I looked at like where is it coming from. But what I would be careful, because I don't think that immigration is tied to more fentanyl coming in. I think that there are illegal methods that like drug, cartels or whatever.
Or smuggling or border security more broadly.
Sure. But that's a border security issue as much more than it's an immigration issue. Like I don't have a problem with like immigration or people coming into the country. I don't really care about that.
Yeah,
obviously we shouldn't do it too fast. There is a cultural aspect, but anybody can be acclimated to the culture over the course of a generation or two. So, obviously I wouldn't want.
Is that true?
Yeah, well, do you know like a black guy or a Hispanic guy?
Wait, what? Yeah.
Yeah, like, well, what I said is that I think that like anybody can get acclimated to a culture after a couple generations. Like, so then you asked if that,
well, I disagree with that. I don't think anybody just instantly would like to become
no.
American if they come here.
What I'm saying is that like a generation or two, right? So once somebody comes into the country and they have kids, their kids or their kids' kids, they will eventually just become part of like what we would consider the American culture. So I think
Maybe.
that. Well, yeah, for sure. They're going to come in here. They're going to be born here. They're going to be raised here. American culture is kind of a very abstract thing because it's mostly just about like don't break the law and make money. Do your thing. We have a very much a melting pot.
It depends, right? Because it's like if your parents don't want you to, or like you want to. What's the word? Like not assimilate, then
But you probably will, right? What I'm saying is that like your parents are gonna, or someone's parents are gonna come here. They're gonna be more aligning with whatever their culture is. Which, by the way, cultures south of the border are actually very similar to American cultures. They tend to be very religious, more right wing. So it's really not that big of a deal in general.
Well, I don't know if they're very similar. I know the religious part's true, but I don't know if they're very similar.
Yeah, well, no, they're similar. They're very focused on like Christianity, or some denomination of.
I don't know if our
Catholicism.
country is super focused on that right now.
Well, no, but that's what you would generally say is like what is American culture to you? I guess is the question. What would you say is American culture?
It's a good question. I think it has to do a lot with interconnection, or actually, I don't know. That is a good question.
It's a hard
I don't know
question.
How I would define
Historically,
it.
it's been like religious people, right?
Yeah, but that's just you. I would never say American culture today is religious. It's just not.
I wouldn't either, but that's usually what people are speaking to when they're saying like, "Oh, I'm worried about our culture kind of getting."
I think a lot about like consumerism, capitalism, mass media, entertainment.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of those things are. I would say in some people, I don't hate capitalism, but a lot of those things aren't necessarily good, like consumerism and all this, like the way that we engage with media. I'd say that like isn't even necessarily a good thing for me. American culture really just means like. Not a whole lot, like working hard, making money, and not hurting other people. I think it's we're not super, we maybe we do have a little less of an identity nowadays, but it's really not super complicated. As long as you're doing your thing, you're working hard, and you're, trying to support a family and raise a family. That's pretty much American culture to me. And I think that people south of the border tend to like reflect those values pretty well. I think that like religion kind of historically has been part of like American culture. That's obviously shifting. But people, I think that they're pretty similar. Maybe they say they don't have the same access to education, but they'll get that in America, right? So,
I mean, I don't know.
And guns.
Yeah, well, that is also true. Like the guns thing. I think there's so many different things. I don't think that people living in Mexico are they share the same culture as people living in America.
I think it's similar-ish. I think that people in
Maybe.
Mexico is like, or people south of the border.
Parts of it.
Yeah, no, parts of it. The similarities are they're very hardworking people that want to make money for the family.
Like, because you're talking about mass immigration. Like, I think if there was like a 2 million increase in terms of persons that were immigrating to the U.S. from Mexico. I think that wouldn't be good.
Well, I don't know the specific numbers, but like I agree with you fundamentally that I think that too many people moving too quickly is not a good thing.
Yeah,
But
for
overall,
sure.
like as long as whatever immigration experts, whatever they say, I don't give a shit. Like that's fine. Like I agree with you in that capacity where like it could go too quick, too fast. But overall, I don't
Yeah.
think that like immigration is a problem as long as it's regulated well enough. And like I said, like people are gonna come over here and they're going to assimilate in some capacity. Like I have black and Hispanic friends or coworkers I used to work with. We're not all exactly the same, but it's the same. They've assimilated. They're here,
Yeah.
they're working, they're paying their taxes, they're not harming anybody, and they're trying to do better for their kids.
Yeah.
So like and America was built on a lot of immigration. So as long as it's regulated well, that's all I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, if you move like a group of people that have been living their life one way to a area where it's like they live life a different way. If you do that in too short of a time, it's like you're gonna have unexpected consequences, or it's just not gonna be the same.
But maybe possibly. I mean, what is the way that? Because I tend to like overall agree with you of like limiting immigration to a point where it's not too overwhelming for a country for like economic and cultural reasons for sure. But what is it like? How different do you think that people in like Mexico or El Salvador are like living versus us that you're worried about? Because
well, it's not that I'm worried about it, but it's like if you have like a town and then instantly over the course of a year, maybe five or 2,000 people from Mexico, move into that town. It's like, well, then there's going to be consequences to that because if they're all speaking Spanish and then there's 2,000 of them, well, there's less of an incentive for them to actually want to learn English. And if they want to learn English, then there's like money that has to go into like a schooling thing for like maybe their kids to put English lessons in the school, and then that's going to cost taxpayers more money.
Well, I'm fine with that part. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care about better schooling. We spend like almost $1 trillion a year on
Well, you just asked me how it would affect, and I'm saying that's one of them.
Sure.
Obviously the language barrier that takes time and effort to do, which it's an inconvenience for the native population, especially if it's at like a big scale. Then obviously like there's different mannerisms and customs that they may have.
Well, that's more what I'm like. What do you like? What's a mannerism or custom that you might be a little afraid of when it comes to like somebody from another country?
I'm not afraid of it.
Oh, okay. I don't know that. Well,
I'm not even I'm Puerto Rican, so I eat a lot of Puerto Rican food, which I know that. So this is a good example. So if my Puerto Rican side were to be like if 2,000 Puerto Ricans were to instantly move to my town, it's like, well, they have a certain style of food that they like to eat. They use different ingredients that may be harder to get here. So then it's just like you start using. It's like, does their culture become the focus, or if it doesn't, then how do you support it? And it's all these sort of variables that you have to account for.
I suppose, yeah.
So, and it's like if you have people maybe opening restaurants, like Mexican restaurants in I don't know, like a town. Maybe people don't want to eat Mexican food, and then
I suppose
there's a lot of different things. I'm not saying I don't like that. I'm just saying that it would be a disruption.
It could be. Yeah, I guess I kind of get it. I have never really thought about that part, more than it too much. I guess one of the concerns could be they usually come here poor, and you don't want. I don't know, to have too many poor people.
Well, all the research is that that immigration is economically beneficial. Anybody who's going to argue that like they take your jobs or anything, they're probably just like hicks. Like they don't really know what they're talking about. But it is true that like I like to view it as like a puzzle. Like you have a town, it's like a puzzle, and you sort of like have all the pieces in the puzzle, sort of like that make the picture. But then like you have pieces of a puzzle from a different puzzle. Now this puzzle isn't any better or worse, it's just a different puzzle, and then you sort of have to like try to figure out how you're going to get the pieces from the different puzzle to work with the one that you already have, and it's just like you can make it probably work, there's ways to do it. But
I guess the question I want to ask, right, do you feel like we're letting in too many immigrants now?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, why?
Well, I got the death stare the other day. I went to Chick-fil-A in the city, and the lady asked me, or she basically took my order, and I responded in English, and then she got mad and had to get one of her coworkers who spoke English to take my order, which is like,
was it a Spanish person or?
What do you mean?
No, I
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
or was it
yeah,
like
the-
Asian?
yeah,
Because you
the-
said the city, so like when last time was the city.
yeah. It was she was
lot
a
of
Spanish
Asians.
lady, and
Okay.
I can speak okay Spanish, and I'm fluent in understanding Spanish because my grandmother was Spanish, Puerto Rican, right? So I can understand. My mom occasionally she'll speak phrases to me like mijo and stuff like in Spanish just to address me, right? Because it's just part of like the culture, right? But it's bothersome that you could have like someone, like anybody who is from this country and they can't get a fucking sandwich because they don't speak Spanish. Or they're gonna get attitude from a worker who wants them to order in Spanish. Is gonna get mad if they don't order in Spanish, right?
Sure. Well, what I would say is, for the one thing, is that like it seems like they were able to provide you with like an English speaking person.
Yeah,
were,
but it's
were you
like-
in like a Spanish area? Like, it's a little peculiar to me.
I don't know if I really want to like say
Oh,
the
you don't have to say
specific area,
exactly. No, don't say
But
the specific area. If you
but,
don't
but
want to.
it was not predominantly Spanish. No.
Yeah, because I know that there's a lot of like there's like, a lot of segregation in like
Yeah.
the city. There's a lot of like Asian areas, and there's a lot of like
and
Spanish
the
areas
problem
or
whenever you
Italian,
have this
Irish.
conversation is people believe that you're like diminishing the value of a different culture because of like he hates Spanish. It's like, dude, like I'm literally Puerto Rican. Like I'm not.
Yeah.
Like
Well, it seems like
I'm-
you. It seems like you're a very Americanized Puerto Rican person. You were.
Oh,
you,
yeah,
You
no, of course,
assimilated
of course.
very well, so you are proof that you can assimilate.
Well, no. Like I am a white boy, right? But like,
But
in
also
terms of like,
because I
but
know
ethnically,
and this isn't something I'm going to co-sign, but I want to say because I've heard a lot of Hispanic people aren't a huge fan of Puerto Ricans because they say that Puerto
Yeah.
Ricans act entitled because they're like American citizens. And now I don't have any personal experience with that, but I've worked with a lot of Hispanic guys from like El Salvador and Ecuador,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things that they'll say. I don't know if that's even true. There's racism all across everything.
Right.
People would be surprised how much like different Hispanic people don't like each other.
yeah, no, it's definitely true.
But you definitely assimilated, which we were talking about that point before.
Yeah,
where
of
we were
course.
talking about. So I think they'll assimilate. I just don't know because I'm from New York too, and
No. I don't. I'm not even anti-assimilation. I'm just suggesting that it can disrupt and be problematic for the native population.
sure. But I think that depends on like the amount of openness you are. Like, so I come from like my school where I'm from was. It was pretty much like a third white, a third Spanish, and a third black for the most part. I've always been around black and Hispanic people. My mother worked for White Castle. I've always known Hispanic people, and I've dealt with people who can't necessarily speak English super well. They try their best.
Yeah.
I've never really personally had a problem. I've really caring if there's like a Hispanic person who can't speak. Like, I agree, people should probably learn English to the best of their abilities if they come here. But like, I haven't noticed this huge issue or from like a systemic aspect outside of maybe it's hard to order food or when I go into like a Hispanic restaurant the
there's
ceilings
more
are too low
examples that-
because they're so
yeah.
short.
Yeah, there's more examples that I can give you, but the point that I'm making is that you're saying it doesn't bother you, right? But you have to
Yeah.
understand that if you just have some individual that is maybe he's had a bad day, and then it's sort of just like replace him in the shoes that maybe you or I in, where maybe you don't feel bothered by the fact that it's an inconvenience that they don't know English,
Mhm.
and right. But like now you're expecting them to, it's like you're not inconvenienced. Okay, you don't know English, right? So it's gonna maybe hard for me to order some food. But it's like if you've had a bad day and they're gonna give you attitude because you need to like communicate with them in order to get your food. It's like you can't expect everybody to be like, oh no, it's okay. They'll just assimilate, because it's like, well, that may be true. It's like people don't live their life thinking about like, oh no, they'll eventually assimilate. It's like, no, like I want my food. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
if that makes sense, or if that same lady, for example, maybe I was first in line, but then there was a person who did speak Spanish behind me, and then she took his order first, right?
Well, did she do that?
No, I'm just giving an example. I mean, that sort of stuff does happen, though.
Maybe. Well, because here's the thing. I understand what you're saying, and like from a personal perspective.
Wait, but hold on, can I just finish real quick?
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't know you were done. You
Yeah,
weren't done. Go ahead,
I'm just saying. So, like, if that were to happen, right? Maybe even then you'd be like, "Oh no, I don't care. It's not an inconvenience, right?" But at the end of the day, if you're receiving like less quality service than you should, and it is an inconvenience, maybe you'd be fine with it. But it's like, it's like, well, you at the end of the day, you can't. It's like you're in that moment. You're not gonna be like, oh, they'll eventually assimilate. They'll eventually start to speak English. It's like no, like my day-to-day life is being actually affected by this. Like I'm not gonna just, you know what I mean?
I understand what you're saying. Like, and so on like a very personal level,
Anyway,
if I was somebody who maybe got off like a long 12 or 14-hour shift.
what do you? Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm
What
sorry.
are
I
you-
gotta stop reading the chat.
yeah, you guys
What's
are-
the chat?
I'm not even reading it. I'm not even reading
This
it.
guy visits other countries and expects them to speak English. Are you fucking high? I went to Costa Rica and only spoke Spanish.
Could you speak Spanish?
Nah, not as well as I could 2
Okay,
years ago.
Okay. Anyway, like I was saying, you know,
Well, I don't speak a little bit.
from a human perspective, if
Pero solamente porque mi abuela es de Puerto Rico, pero
you telling me that your grandma's from Puerto Rico, that's what you're saying.
yeah.
All right. So here's what I was saying. Okay. So I can understand from a personal level somebody being frustrated after like a long 12-hour shift coming home, and then there's they try to go and get something to eat, and it's frustrating because the person doesn't speak English and they have to like ask for somebody, or they might have an issue ordering. I get that from a human level, but on like a societal level, I'm not seeing that as like this massive issue where it's like, oh,
Yeah, it
I
depends
think,
where you are. Yeah,
sure,
for
but
sure.
I don't think it's this massive issue where we have too many immigrants here. Having a negative impact. Like I said, I grew up in a very Black and Hispanic area. Like I don't see this as like a huge problem. There might be some inconveniences, but like there's a difference between like an inconvenience and like a system breakdown.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. I don't think it's a huge problem.
Yeah, I
don't
would
think
say
ever
it's
said
like
that it is.
a distrirbance. I would say at best.
I
yeah.
agree with that. Yeah, I don't think it's a huge problem. I notice it. I think it exists. I think it is a tangible problem. I think it's a bigger, or this sort of stuff is not it's definitely higher on the list than self ID in terms of like queer stuff.
Mhm. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, sure. I just don't think it's like a particularly large problem either. Like there's it's always an adjustment to deal with different people and stuff.
Yeah.
But that to me is not that big of a deal. You know what I mean? But I understand what you're saying.
Well, I think when you talk about like economics, then that's sort of where the problem begins, because then it's like you're talking about raising local taxes, or like the mayor or something proposing new legislation to make it easier for maybe like Spanish lessons to become available in school or something, but that comes at the detriment.
Did you mean
of,
like English lessons, I guess?
Or English
Yeah,
lessons,
yeah.
sorry. Yeah. And then it's sort of like then you're taking maybe time away from students, or you're cutting extracurriculars, you're doing something like this, and then that sort of like becomes the problem when you're using resources to that maybe become detriment, or maybe they are what's the word, not the opposite of benefit,
Like detrimental. I understand what you're saying. That there
Yeah.
might have to be an increase in resources for somebody that comes here. For instance, you said language could be a problem, so we need a more robust language in a particular area. Or they might have less money because they're probably coming over here poor, which means that they might have to be on welfare in some capacity.
yeah.
But what you had said before is that overall immigration is a positive, and I would say like the kind of the pros and cons outweigh each other. For instance, a big issue that other countries have. I don't know if you've heard. But there's other Western countries have had this huge issue of an aging population. And what happens is that people are basically having fewer kids later in life. And so there isn't necessarily enough people that are
low birth
younger.
rate.
So, yeah, we don't have that problem because of immigration. So to me, like, we're really just, if you look at it purely from that like
Well, I
economic
think that also is a problem, but yeah,
well, if you look at it from a purely economic perspective,
like
like
cancels out.
it's an investment into a population of people that will be able to work to basically, when I get older, pay for my Social Security, right? So I don't think it's necessarily a negative that we have these robust things. I think it's good for everybody to be able to have. Just fundamentally, I'm in agreements with a bunch of different school structures, whether it's for people that speak different languages or not, or somebody, because you can make the same argument for somebody with Down syndrome. Well, this feels like a waste of economic resources, or somebody with a development. A learning disability. Well, hold on one sec. Or a learning disability. Do we? If your argument is we shouldn't provide different resources to help people learn a particular language, well, why wouldn't that go farther and say, like, what about people that have learning disabilities that make it harder for them to learn? Should we not invest extra resources into helping them? What about people with Down syndrome? Should we not have like robust communities or group home settings to be able to support them? That's where like it all kind of seems like it's overall people have a particular issue, and I think it's a good thing to try to help those people from a community perspective tackle that issue as a community, especially since that something like that could happen to you, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think it would be different for for two different reasons. But because first of all, I don't view it as abstract. I don't think that it's just like, helping people in general is bad if it costs money, because that's not how I view it.
Mhm.
I just think it's why you're helping somebody, and what that's gonna take. So you're helping somebody with a disability. Maybe that costs money from the school that you're paying for, like a special needs program.
Yeah.
I think that's fine, because if these people have lived in the community their whole life, and they're part of it, maybe mom's in PTA or something, it's like, well, then that's fine, because it's like, you're helping this disabled student who's already disadvantaged. But it's like immigration, if they weren't a citizen, they become a citizen, that's a new problem that's sort of arose. It's a new thing that you have to tackle, if that makes sense.
I get what you're saying, but then also if our government, again, because decided to let somebody in legally, obviously the right way, we'll say, and they've done so because it's usually a positive economic factor with not having an aging population, and these people also will work jobs that nobody else wants to work. To help their kids, I don't see as a negative. Again, they're part of, like, once you're an American citizen, you're an American now, and so having kids to have access to ESL programs, English Second Language and whatnot, I don't see it as a negative. I see that as a way to, frankly, help assimilate those people. Now you're teaching them English for free in schools. That's just going to make them able to speak English, be more part of American culture, right? We talked before about how it can be frustrating when you have like a Spanish-speaking person, like, try to take your order from whichever restaurant you're at. But this wouldn't be a problem if they were able to get that level of education to be able to speak English in schools. So their kids, they're not going to be able to teach their kids English, right, if they can't speak English, but now the school can. So you're not going to see that problem. Their parents are working, they're paying taxpayer money. We still need people that want to be cashiers, whether we want to do it or not. They need to exist, and this woman is willing to work, and that's how I look at it. Is if you're willing to do the job, God bless, is how I look at it. And so that's kind of how I see it for that.
Yeah, but I think it depends on like how much resources you're using to accomplish that. And I think that, depending on that factor, it becomes less worth it. So if you're putting teachers that could also be offering like an extra help program after school for, their subject, and then they can't do that because they have to do ESL or something, or something like that, then you have to wonder, is it worth it then, or something?
I guess, but that's usually not how that would work, right? So
right, but then also there's like, is taxes increasing on this? Like, is the school district budget, like, is it? There's a lot of other factors that go into.
No,
it.
sure.
So you're saying like, because then you're basically then your argument's basically like, well, it would have been easier for you to order your food if like this woman spoke English. And I'm like, yeah, for sure. But now it's like, is it on me to pay for like the taxes in which, the apparatus in which she's going to learn English through? I would say that shouldn't be my responsibility.
Sure,
as like an American citizen, because our national language is English.
Sure, and I think that people should speak English, but we are both immigrants in some capacity, right? My grandparents or my great grandparents came here during World War II. You're Puerto Rican, so without these infrastructures, we wouldn't even be here in the first place. It's not just, we can teach them English or something like that. It's also like we get more workers to help us offset a very real problem that other countries are having, which is an aging population. And all we really have to do is help educate them a little more. When it comes to teacher issue, yeah, we'll have higher taxes, which of course means less money in our pockets, but it also means more jobs.
Yeah, if I was an employer, I would offer free English lessons for like a Hispanic workforce that was like doing, I don't know, like construction or something, for sure.
Yeah, but you get my point though, right? So like it's not just about like this very limited, like, oh yeah, like the taxes might go up a little bit, but like how, again, they're coming here and having a very positive economic impact on us because they're working jobs we don't want to work in many cases, and they're offsetting our aging population, and then their kids get access to be able to have better education.
Well, I don't agree with the offsetting the aging population thing. I don't think I don't like that argument very much, but I think everything else is.
Well, what is about it? What about it do you not like it? Before you answer, I just want to.
Because
if you look at if you look at other countries, like any other Western country that's very predominantly white, and they don't take in a lot of people, or even Japan, they have an aging population. They have fewer people that are younger to be able to work jobs to put money into the economy to be able to pay for your older people. That's what you're doing with these benefit programs.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah,
I misunderstood your argument.
Okay, that's what it comes down to. And so, like over here, we don't really have that problem because we say like, oh, we're having fewer native birth rates because people are having fewer kids. Like we're going to be able to take in immigration. And
I thought you were saying that just because we're importing all these people that it's good for the population size because we're not giving birth.
No. It's more for the population proportionality, like the size. I understand what you're saying. Like we might be getting too big, but we need a proportionate amount of young people to work and pay taxes and support the economy to be able to take care of our proportionally amount of older people. That's the point.
Well, because my thing is that I don't think it's like if we should keep the population to a certain size in order to make sure like we're economically secure. I don't think that just importing all these people from like Mexico or something would be the same as like having natives give birth, if that makes sense. Because I don't think these people are like replaceable. Like I think a native born American versus like an immigrant is like it's two different people. So it's like let's say the population is like 300 million people or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the next year it's gonna be like I don't know 395 or 295 because natives aren't really giving birth, but you can import like 5 million people to offset that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that those two the 300 million are like the same, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Well, then that gets into a conversation of like, let's say we were going to take like a more of like, I guess, an extreme perspective of like, we didn't want to take as many immigrants in. So how do we get our population, our native population or now native population to increase the amount of babies they're pumping, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to just force people to do that. You have to really like healthcare.
There's a lot of ways you can do it.
How would you do it?
Well, you of course would provide immense tax reliefs for families. You'd provide educational benefits. It would mostly be with money. You would give them like all the leeway that you would want with money in terms of like raising them and stuff.
Sure, that would increase taxes, like we were talking about before. But I'd say the biggest way.
If there's a war effort, I think that there probably would be. You could relieve it if it's in the national interest.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I don't think you have to always increase taxes if you're gonna add these benefits for families, especially in like a wartime.
Well, yeah, but somebody has to pay for it. So if you're gonna like doing these benefits, these like welfare benefits, which I agree with.
But you just take money away from other programs that are obsolete in this time.
Oh yeah, well we should be doing that in general, right? Regardless of whether we repurpose that money.
Yeah, but I'm saying like if you really want them to have kids, then you'll actually fucking do it.
Yeah, for sure. I would say the biggest thing that we could do to have kids is like some kind of health care. It costs like $20,000 to have a baby. Some kind of structure in childcare would help. Stuff like that is where I would go. But okay, sure, I get that.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, interesting. All right. So you don't like Mexican people, is what you're telling me? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right. Well, interesting stuff.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't think people are like interchangeable. It's like the main thing,
What do you mean by interchangeable?
I don't think if you have, a population of like, Americans, and then, of like 300 million, and then that goes down because we're not giving birth, and then you import like 5 million Mexicans, that it's like the same population. It's like, yeah, and the size it is, but it's like you're gonna have differences.
Yeah, I just don't think that those differences are meaningful in a negative capacity. Like, I think that we have a lot of immigrants. Again,
no way.
No, in a meaningful capacity, and that's going to have like a destructive impact. Like, again, we have a ton. Like, America was built on immigrants. Like, the two of us here are people who benefited from immigration. Like, I wouldn't be here if without immigration from Germany. Hey, I might have been better off in Germany, but I wouldn't be here. Maybe not, because I'm also Jewish, but I wouldn't be here without immigration. You wouldn't be here without immigration. There's clearly a positive, and the fundamental, like the real big part of it is like almost brain draining, where you take like the best, quote unquote, from other countries. But I think that there's a really solid benefit from like immigration. Is it the same as a native born person? No, but I don't think that's necessarily going to have like a big negative impact that's going to destroy us culturally. Like I don't see a huge issue. You know, some of the other problems you had brought up, like drugs coming across the border, I don't think that that's an immigration issue more than anything else. I think that's a lack of maybe, I mean, the biggest issue that is the fact that there's a market for it. There's like an addiction problem. People are addicted to these things, which is really the fault of, you know, hospitals and drug companies. You know, either overprescribing addictive medication or, you know, even creating addictive medication and not letting people know how addictive it is. There's a whole lawsuit going on with like opioids, I believe. So, but like, you know, without that demand, that supply would be almost irrelevant. I think that that's probably a better place to focus on in general.
Yeah, I agree with that. Your chat is ruthless, though. I don't
What
know if they're like intentionally like misrepresenting like what I'm saying or like. What.
That's what I'm telling you. You shouldn't really respond to these. You shouldn't really read these guys.
I just have it up on my screen. Yeah, I mean, I guess, but it's just like I like to think if I was in a conversation with any of these people, like, well, I don't know, I don't think they'd be.
They probably would be like nicer. This. Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, not even nicer, but like this just doesn't even make any sense. Like this says why is she saying importing people as if they're goods? It's like, do you know what the word import means?
I understand what you mean.
Like, would you rather me say take in? Is that like better for you? I mean,
I guess, okay. Yeah. Well, I get what you're saying. Yeah, no, they're a little, you know, they're eager, they're anxious, you know, they're ready for a fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like it's like, do you it's like. Yeah, go to. It's like you think I'm saying import like to dehumanize them? Like I don't know, like what the fuck you're like. I don't know. It's just YouTube chat, man.
I wouldn't worry too much about it. You know, if you want to make that politics channel, like, you know, you gotta get ready for it.
I guess, but it's like I don't know. Like bro, like you hate immigrants, but you're an immigrant. First of all, don't hate immigrants. Second of all, I'm not an immigrant, but yeah.
Well, I think they mean that you're like a product of immigration, right?
Yeah, I guess.
Or like, you know, you're like your family was from Puerto Rico, so they're immigrants in capacity.
They're stun locking you over semantics. That sounds about right.
Yeah, that's what they do to me sometimes. They'll do that. They'll give me some shit too if I have any base takes. People will be very upset with me.
Do you think the majority of your chat are in like relationships?
Like with people? Like
yeah,
sexual relationships.
Yeah, romantic relationships. I'm curious because I was called an incel a few times, and I'm trying to see like whether or not they themselves are involved with anything.
I think that I have a more diverse audience. So some of them are I have either like younger men, which may not necessarily be in relationships, or older women who are usually married. Like that's what, you know, courtesy of my wife. They enjoy my wife a lot, so they'll watch my content. I think a good amount of them are probably in some kind of a relationship. Yeah, but I think they're calling you an incel because they're perceiving some of the things you're saying as. I guess stuff.
They said I'm a misogynist too, which this doesn't make any sense.
Why they say you're a misogynist?
I don't know. They just said I saw someone said, he has a lot of misogynistic views, and I'm just trying to think like what? Like I don't even like you shouldn't. Like that's actually really interesting to me because all I said was that women shouldn't like do OnlyFans or like, you know, whore themselves out because it would be bad for them, you know. And that's just like. And that's like a pro-women thing, no?
Well, I think, and I don't think that you're like this deep-seated, like horrible misogynist, but I think what they're saying more is that, you know, you seem to have more like a higher negativity on women who are more sexually promiscuous than men.
Not because I just dislike sex or anything, but because I know that it's not good for them.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's not like that's infantilizing to women, right? So like to say to a woman that it's not good for them to do a particular behavior, they would see that as like, you know, you're treating them like a kid in some capacity, or women like a kid. Whereas, you know, I say like you do you. If you make a mistake, you make a mistake. Like that's life is about making mistakes, you know, whatever.
Well, I'm saying it because it's popular.
What's that?
Doing OnlyFans and stuff, and
I don't think
Hot Girl Summers. And
I don't think OnlyFans is as popular as people think. I think that it was kind of a growing trend, and people are finally rebounding.
Well, I know 3 girls from my high school who ended up doing an OF. That's fucking insane.
Yeah, sure. How like it's not hard to make an OnlyFans. Like how successful, how popular are they, or is it just like, oh, let me try this kind of a thing?
Well, I feel like it doesn't really matter, right?
I think it might a little bit.
How successful they are.
Well, yeah, like how much of it is just let me make this versus like let me actually like robustly support this and actually see how far I can go.
I have no idea. I don't really check on that.
It's
sort
like
of stuff.
it's like if a bunch of people, because of Andrew Tate or because somebody decided to do drop shipping, but it didn't go well. Like I wouldn't say that.
I think it's very different.
Well, I mean, drop shipping is kind of bullshit too. So
Yeah.
I would say that it's similar. It's in a similar capacity. I think that you should make an OnlyFans to prove these women wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you'd be able to, show them what's good.
Yeah, maybe.
Not a bad idea.
But that's just one of my. I don't think it's infantilizing.
I think
just telling something that something's not good for them is not infantilizing. I don't.
So if I think in general having a bunch of sex isn't good for somebody, but I think that when you're talking about it, at least the way that people are hearing it, is that you're saying that it's specifically a woman issue and that women in general shouldn't be able to have the same access to sex as men. And if they
who does the sexual liberation movement target?
Oh, like women. Sure, like women are the ones that, because men have always been sexually liberated. So like it's just about women being like, hey, we want to do the same thing.
Well, I don't think it is the same thing because men don't make OnlyFans. Men don't have hot girl summers.
Well, men don't make OnlyFans for sure. Men do have like hot girl summers, just they're not hot girls. The thing is that we don't name it that because it's so normalized. Like men are just fuck boys that'll fuck around. So it doesn't have like a name. But like, yeah, parties, people go into parties and fuck it around all the time. The guys do the same thing. That's how the girls are able to have their hot girl summers, because hot guys are also having a summer and they're having sex.
Right, but I don't think. I think it's like. I think it's to a different extent right now.
Even if it is right now, which I don't know if I agree with you, that's like a very temporary thing, and it would be a reaction to historically not being able to engage in the same behaviors.
Yeah, it's a movement.
Right, but like it's one of those things where, let's say I agree with you, it's women are worse now, which I don't think so, but
that's not what I said.
Okay, let's say what is it? It sounds
I don't think they are worse now. I just think that it's.
You're saying that sexual promiscuity is
bad for. Oh, when you say worse, what do you mean? Like less well off, or like I don't. What do you mean when you say worse?
It sounded like you had just said that women are, I guess, disproportionately having more sexual promiscuity versus men having more sexual promiscuity.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, even if that's true, that's more of a reaction.
Or even if it's not, which I don't have the graph.
Sure.
I'm speaking sort of anecdotally. I think it's definitely being pushed more.
Well, here's the thing. Maybe, but like, here's the thing, right? So even if it is true, because women are more sexually promiscuous now, that is a reaction to, up until very recently, women not being able to do that without like intense societal shame. So there are some people that maybe are glorifying it in a negative way, which happens for every single movement. It goes too far, but eventually it will rebound, and probably somewhat soon, and women will, like, but most women are just like, oh, I have the ability to fuck around if I want to, and a lot of women just won't take it because they don't want to do that. But I think both men and women fucking around too much is bad for them, and they should both be able to have access to it if they want, though, because life is about having experiences and learning through those experiences.
My point is just the movement isn't good. That's it.
Maybe. I think that overall a little sexual liberation is okay. But I would just apply the same criticism to both men and women.
Right, but if the movement is mainly involving women, then I think it's fair to.
Right, but it's not the movement that we're criticizing, right? It's the behavior that we're criticizing. So I think that if whether it's a guy or a girl engaging in the same like fuck boy or fuck girl behavior, they probably shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But I think the movement is bad because it incentivizes the behavior.
Maybe.
Well, I think it's true. I mean, like.
Well, I don't think it incentivizes it. I think it just says we can do whatever we want. And then,
you don't think so? You don't think like Megan Thee Stallion and like WAP and like wet ass pussy and like twerking all the time and like TikTok, like seductive dancing? Like, you don't think that influences anything?
Yeah, I guess it could influence it. Sure, I suppose.
Yeah, that's my point. Because it does.
Okay, I guess so. I would say that those things are also impactful on men. When guys see girls twerking, it makes them want to fuck girls more. Versus, I guess, girls.
Like on TikTok?
Well, that's kind of the point, right? If it's I don't think a woman would engage in a sexualized behavior unless there was some idea that like they're going to get attention, and that attention is going to be sexualized attention. So these women wouldn't really be getting that attention if it wasn't for men consuming it, right?
Ooh, I don't know if I agree with that. I feel like a lot of it is women, like they think that they're building each other up. That's like a fake thing.
Well, like you said before, women need to be building each other up. So I guess they're doing what you said they needed to do.
In the wrong way, for the wrong reasons, yeah.
I mean, maybe. I just don't think it's like that. huge of a deal in general. You know, like I don't really care too much about sexualized music. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think our society maybe sometimes is a little too sexually kind of almost immature when it comes to sex. You know, we'll be very hyper vigilant about too much sex in the media, but we're kind of very okay with like guns and whatnot. Whereas other countries that are more sexually free and they don't have all these very, you know, interesting relationships with sex, they don't seem to have the same level, anywhere near the same level of problems that we do. You know, I think that's part of it, is that it's a taboo right now. Sex is a taboo, and if it wasn't, I don't think that people would be treating it like it's this really cool, awesome thing. So that's probably a factor as well.
Okay, yeah, I agree with that.
So
I think it's just weird. It's not even like people who are saying like, yeah, you said men engage in the behavior too. I think it's true, like they do, but I don't think it's as much recently, to the extent that I don't think there's been as much of an increase in it recently as there has been for women. And I think the mainstream popularity of it is way more involving women. That's why 80%, or it's like what, 70 or 80% of the women on I'm sorry, 80% of the creators on women. 70. What is it?
you're saying that most of the majority of the creators on OnlyFans are women? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's like it's like a
like disproportionately higher.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's like,
but that's how it's always been.
Right, but I'm saying that like if you look at like the actual number, not the percentage, it's gone up like a lot.
Yeah, sure, but like in general, the overwhelming majority of people who do porn are women, because men consume porn more, and that's the audience, and most men.
Right, and porn's more popular because of women. Or I'm sorry, not. I've said that wrong. It's there's more women being involved in porn than there used to be.
Sure, yeah, very saturated market. Yeah, I guess. But
yeah.
But again, like men
men that watch the porn. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, men
but
like to
the point is
beat off to it.
Yeah, but the point is, you could say that, yeah, part of it is because there's a market for it, and that's why they're doing it. But I would say also part of it is that women are encouraging each other to, or it's not like shamed or anything. It's not stigmatized, really.
I would say that OnlyFans is still pretty stigmatized. It's just not as stigmatized.
Maybe among men, but not really among women. I don't think girls are like, oh, you do OnlyFans, I can't be your friend. Like, I don't think that's true.
Yeah, but I don't think that means that something's not stigmatized just because you wouldn't be somebody's friend. But fuck, what was I gonna say? I just lost my whole train of thought. Okay, yeah, right. Just because the women might be making OnlyFans, and I agree. If a girl wants to make an OnlyFans, like, you be my guest, like, do whatever you want. I don't think it's good to harp on that as like a career option, because like it's very short lived. But if a person is making an OnlyFans, I don't think that necessarily is a problem, because most of them are going to make it and realize that it's bad and stop, because they're not going to make any money, or they're going to realize that they're going to be like objectifying themselves in a way that's going to be upsetting.
Hopefully.
So they'll stop. Like I said, I think that these things are rebounding. Things are already rebounding. You're seeing more and more people who used to do OnlyFans talk about how like toxic the relationship is, about how like, oh, they're on TikTok and they thought it was going to be so cool and so glorified and they make so much money, and then they realize like it sucks. So I don't think I think that some of these things are going to correct themselves through engaging of the behavior. But fundamentally, like overall, I think it's fine for women to be like, hey, I also want, if you have the ability to fuck around, I would like to be able to also fuck around. And that's fine, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get you to agree that it's not just that, but rather it's like the glorification of it. And sort of like people don't really talk about the negatives of it.
No, but they have. That's what I'm saying. They have been. Like, it's kind of happening more and more every day. People talk about the negative. Like, right now, we're both agreeing that OnlyFans is generally like negative for most people.
We're men.
Right, but I think that women are also saying the same thing. I'm saying that the societal conversation. Well, the people who are speaking out against OnlyFans are the ones that I've seen are the ones that were doing it, and they're like, yeah, it was. I thought it would be awesome and cool and great, but actually, it sucks. I think that things are going to change a lot. For me, in general, there's always going to be like ebbs and flows in our society where, you know, think about it, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when like everything happened over COVID, like how fucking crazy liberal was everything. It was insane, right? everything like you know you couldn't take a piss without being a racist if you were a white person. Everything was misogynistic, everything was sexist, everything was racist, everything was ableist, everything was this, that, and the other thing. If you said anything negative, you got dumpstered. Now we've very much taken a shift away from that because we've kind of corrected. We've realized that we were going fucking crazy and things have shifted. That's happening with OnlyFans too, and I think it's going to continue to happen. Like that's how things work. Everything has like a level of advocacy, and then it goes too far, and then it gets rebounded, and it comes back. And as a society, we shift back and forth between like generally a little more progressive and a little more conservative. So that's just kind of.
Do you think that what I said about there being a female Andrew Tate or something like that is going to happen?
I mean, people are trying. You know, you got like Just Pearly things desperately trying. I just don't think that women are on board with the message because like the way that Andrew Tate advocates is at the expense.
No, not Andrew Tate. When I say
no, I know,
Andrew Tate,
but like
mean somebody doing what we're saying, which is like being an advocate of walking away from it or not promoting.
I think it's just I don't know if there's going to be like one woman that's like, oh my god, she's so awesome and blow up.
Maybe not. But I think there's going to be a movement at the very least. I
guess so. Yeah, I think that there already is. It's like it's happening like slowly. Like sure, yeah. I don't think that it's going to be like a forever problem in general.
That's cool.
You know.
All right. Well, I gotta get going. It's been a while. Gotta get started on some shit. But send me some content ideas. I need help.
No problem. I sent you one. Just take a look at some of my videos, and you'll get you'll see some stuff there too. Do your thing, and I'll if I get something that I think is in your wheelhouse, I'll keep it in mind. All right.
Appreciate you, bro.
Make the smelly trans one. All right.
All right. See ya.
And I'll react to it. Peace out. Okay. Well, that was a conversation. That lasted a lot longer than I thought it was, but it was much more engaging than I thought it was going to be. We ended up talking about a little bit more. That was cool. Man, that was a 2-hour long conversation. 2.5 hours. Wow. Oh, stop. You guys are too mean. You guys are being so mean to the guy. You guys are being like, listen. Obviously, I disagree with some of the things he's saying. But you know what? He's a young man. He's a smart young man. But everybody's, everybody goes through their phases. Okay? Everybody has their things. I don't think he said anything that was abnormal for like anybody. You guys acted a little intense to it. And I understand some of the stuff could be perceived as a little rough. But I think that, we're all growing. He was nice. It was a nice conversation.